beginning of the end for you.
To the sky!
Bestowed upon you the power of the sun.
A mighty sword!
Strike while the iron's hot.
For Camelot! For Avalon!
Let the heavens rain! I am Ragnarok!
Hello, SMITE fans, and welcome into the final week of the regular season for Phase 3 of Season 9 in the SMITE Pro League. My name is Jim Tucker, and I'm proud to present to you the final week of regular play brought to us by our good friends over at Prime Gaming. If you don't already have a Prime membership, make sure to pick up that and get all the great perks that come with it, and then link that over to your Twitch account so you can get Prime Gaming, so you can get free games, free in-game content, and a free Twitch Prime subscription to your favorite streamer every single month. You get a new subscription, you get new games, and new in-game content, so make sure that you pick all that up. Thank you so much to Prime Gaming for being the title sponsor of Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League. Joining me on the desk to help me get this day started off is going to be Mifflin. He'll be helping me out as we talk about the Valkyries and the Scarabs. We'll have the Bolts coming up a little bit later as well. Lots of big matchups today specifically because there's a lot of implications on the line for standings as these teams start moving closer towards Worlds.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one. In particular, this first set between the Valkyries and the Scarabs, I think one you have to keep your eyes on. Some roster changes. We get a heat check on this newer version of the Scarabs. The Valks to 6, Twitter bandwagon. We'll see whether or not that holds any weight as well. This one, we chose a good one to start the week off.
Yeah, and we'll also have a good one to end the week on. We'll talk a little bit about the schedule in a moment because, again, this is the last week of the regular season of play, and then after that, it's playoffs, it's play-ins, whatever you want to call, whatever these teams end up going through, because everybody is on their way to the road to Worlds. We take a look at the graphic provided. You guys have seen it quite a few times. We'll show it to you one more time, at least today here. Phase 3 playoffs is what all these teams are playing for right now. Top 6 teams move on to there, and then the 4 teams that qualify from that go all the way to the SWC in January. The 2 teams that don't make it, we'll have to wait until January, where they'll be joined by the 4 teams of the SCC, 2 NA and 2 EU representatives. Then we'll take the top 4 from those 8 remaining teams also to Worlds, and then we'll have our 8 for the SWC in Arlington, Texas. So, name of the game, win games, and you end up going to Worlds. So that's the big part for those guys out there. So that's what everybody is playing for right now, is those coveted spots at the SWC in Arlington. You want to be able to be the teams that are playing out against there. You don't want to be one of the teams that are knocked out if you're the SMITE Pro League over for the SCC. And the good thing is we do have the schedule so that way you guys can see what's going on today, tomorrow, and the remainder of the week, and why we're talking about so many big matchups. Well, we're starting off with the Valkyries and the Scarabs. If you didn't see the Twitter news, couple of new players over here, at least for the Solar Scarabs on their roster. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Camelot Kings and Oni Warriors and Tartarus Titans Olympus Bolts. Another big standings implications match to end our day out. And then I think the match that, at least for me, I'm keeping my eyes on at the very, very end of the week, the Valkyries and the Bolts, could potentially be one of the biggest matches of the season, or I should say at least of this phase for both of these two teams. But it's all got to start up today with this Valkyries matchup, with this Bolts matchup as well, Mifflin.
Yeah, so for the fans at home that are having a harder time trying to visualize the standings and how they're going to look, just keep your eyes on the Bolts and the Valkyries. Those are the 2 that really have got the most potential to shift around. Otherwise, closer to the top, the Atlantis Leviathans have essentially solidified themselves in a top 2 position. And the Jade Dragons are just about in that same position as well, considering their projected matchups going into this week. So, if you're interested in roster shakeups, if you're interested in really seeding shakeups as well, Olympus Bolts, Valhalla Valkyries, Solar Scarabs, that's where you want to keep your eyes.
Yeah, definitely be watching the bottom 3 there. As said, the Leviathans, they've clinched their number 1 seed. If I'm not mistaken, the Jade Dragons, I believe, have also clinched that number 2 seed. If not, they're basically 1 set win away from being able to do so at that point there. So, top 2, pretty much done. Middle 3 beyond that one can kind of go anywhere at that point. It really is down to the Olympus Bolts and the Valhalla Valkyries, one of which we can talk about today and will be in this matchup. Solar Scarabs and the Valkyries are our first set of the day. Now, with the Valkyries, this is a team that's been pretty well established so far throughout the phase. They started phase number 1, found themselves a nice little cheeky win up against the Atlantis Leviathans earlier on into the year, but that was kind of the only set win they were able to get things to start out. Phase 2, come back and pretty much do the same thing. They found a set win up against the Leviathans, but this team has been consistently hitting at that 8th place spot every single time throughout the phase. Now is finally a chance for the Valkyries to maybe push themselves not only just out of 8th place, but maybe even push themselves into that top 6, Mifflin.
Yeah, so recently the Valkyries been looking a lot better. I think that it's generally about confidence. Every time we have the opportunity to talk to them, they say, man, phase one, it was our first phase in the SBL, really adjusting to the culture shock, to the meta shifts, to just the general tempo of these SPL matches, just weren't quite able to keep up in farm. Phase two was about figuring out that identity, and it was a whole lot of, hey, we're really good at that early game, but we will almost certainly reliably be throwing that late game. Now in phase three, starting to see those wins come a little bit more often, a little bit more consistently. And I know that it hasn't exactly been consistent for the Valkyries, but this is a team that has been struggling to find any sorts of wins throughout the year. So anything that they're able to do is marked improvement. And already I think they've essentially doubled their set wins for the year just in this phase alone. So the Valkyries are looking very, very good for themselves. I think that they've really solidified that their dual lane is a win condition. Aqua is stepping up as well. He was one of the question marks for a little while, sometimes having really quiet games, other times generally in the first two phases having really quiet games. But now in phase three, we're having some pretty loud ones from Aqua out of the soul lane. Kirimi has found a couple of gods that he's consistent on. The main question mark for me, which was not a question mark previously, as of right now, is Benny in mid. That is my primary concern. Is he going to be able to adjust this Beads Aegis meta coming back? Is he going to be playing his standard mages? What is he going to do? Because that seems to have been one of the weaknesses in the last couple of weeks, was Benny being forced to adjust to some of the rulings we had to make on the esports side. That said, in the most recent patch, two gods in particular got some buffs, Agni and Anubis, both gods that Benny loves.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what Benny's going to be pulling out over into the mid lane, but we talked a lot about how established the Valkyries are. It's a team that's stuck together the entirety of the phase, so now let's talk about a team that hasn't really been established. I believe, in fact, one of the only players who is remaining from this season's roster, Scary D, over on the side of the Solar Scarabs, now pretty much entirely shaken up across the board there. Sam, their jungler. Mid laner going to be Snoopy for this team now. Hurrywin still in the support role. And now Netroid from the Camelot Kings has joined the roster of the Solar Scarabs, so a completely new look for the Solar Scarabs roster. And Miff, I'll kind of let you expand a little bit on what you were saying into the waiting room. You feel like this might be one of the better iterations of the Solar Scarabs as of recent.
Yeah, I think so. In the last couple of weeks, the performance from Veronic in particular has been a little bit lackluster, and I'm willing to give him every bit of leeway that I can, considering how awful of a year that he has had, considering all the roster changes that were inflicted upon him and the rest of the Solar Scarabs, not chosen by themselves. But when we evaluate play on field, we have to talk about what we see, and recently Veronic hasn't really been having the strongest performances, did not really adapt to the best god pool as of recent, wasn't quite landing those skill shots consistently either. And I think that Snoopy should be, even though he isn't a mid laner per se, has played mid in the past competitively, but as of recent been playing ADC for the most part. I think he should still at least be able to match performance or even potentially overtake Veronic in that role. And Netroid to the ADC role, sure, probably not great considering Yarkor has just been so dominant over there, one of the soloingest players, and even in the most recent matchup between the Scarabs and the Kings, I would argue Yarkor was essentially diffing his lane. But when we compare it to the Solar Scarabs of the past, I feel like Netroid's going to be a great fit and one that really does fit this team.
There was actually a tweet, I believe it was by Soj, that got put out, which, imagine the mental for Netroid right now, as he has now been replaced by a solo laner for his role twice in 2 years.
Just a good Smite player. He's not a solo laner. He played solo. He's just great at Smite.
He is just good at Smite, but Solar Scarabs, again, new roster, 2 new players over onto the team, have had so many shakeups that have been happening so far throughout their phase. But if they can find a win here up against the Valhalla Valkyries, could completely shut down the Valks to 6 just because of how things have been going through. We did have a chance, though, to sit down and talk to Hurrywin, the support of the Solar Scarabs, so we'll go ahead and throw over to that interview.
For phase 3, I think that we've done pretty bad. I joined the team when we were like 05, 06, so it's not like I joined into like a team that was already winning. But I think we put in a lot of time still, and it still feels bad to not get very many wins. Still, our only win since I joined the team is the Valkyries, which is our first set. So I don't think we've done very well. I think we're definitely capable of better. We're putting in the time and the effort. It's not necessarily reflecting in the way that I'd hope, but I'm hopeful that we can turn it around. For qualifiers, I'd say, you know, right now we're fresh off a loss, so people are frustrated, but I think, you know, when our heads are clear, we're feeling pretty confident in our game plan as long as everyone, you know, plays in a consistent way. We're not like getting picked early. We have like a strong early game. The most difficult part about the Valkyries is probably just their mid trio, I think, is where they play the best. I think Kirmi, Benny, and Gamma play really well around each other. So, you know, if we're giving them fights in the mid trio, we really need to be practiced. We really need to know what we're doing. I feel like they probably have a better idea and more confidence in that part of the map than we do. So either we need to do a good job matching them there, or we need to probably play the map a little bit differently. So I think that's usually where they're the strongest.
So Hurrywin seems like he's at least somewhat confident in the team of being able to bring things together, just mostly worrying about that mid 3v3. Though, now notably, that was, you know, kind of talking at the time whenever I had Veronica with the squad there. Now we've got Snoopy joining into the mid. Again, maybe a little bit hesitant on exactly how Snoopy will stand up in that meta up against the mid lane, how he will perform up against players like Benny Q, but still having a strong player like Sam by his side and like Hurrywin being able to help kind of establish things could make it at least a little bit more confident for the Solar Scarabs, though. We will get to see how things are changing up now with the picks and bans for game number 1. Remember, we have jumped ourselves into a whole new patch. It means we're going to be having a lot of new things to talk about, a lot of new discoveries out there, and even notably, you know, maybe some gods for Snoopy in particular that we might get to see a little bit of. I know that Kronos did get a little bit of a buff out there. That's something that he played at least whenever he was over in the duo lane. Whether we see that in mid, still to be determined.
Yeah, Kronos and Kronos Pendant both got buffs, and I think Kronos Pendant might have some ripple effects throughout the mid-god pool, so I'll be excited to see how, I suppose, the mid-lane meta has shifted up. I do think I will generally agree with what Trelly had said during the waiting room, which is when we see broad sweeping class changes, your entire suite of items get some adjustments, a whole slew of gods get some adjustments as well in that mage tab. It does generally take a little while for the pros to, I suppose, suss out those changes. You know, which one of these gods is actually good now, which one of these are red herrings, which one of these items might be able to remove a different item from those core slots, what really shifts up these builds. So maybe we'll see a bit of it in this set, but I expect that to be developed throughout the next couple of weeks.
First bans out throughout the wave is Dodgy, Poseidon, and Atlas from the Solar Scarabs. Valkyries will take away Cupid, Cernanos, and Yamoja. So at least a shot at Benny Q with that Poseidon, because really, outside of Benny, there aren't too many players in the league who are still consistently picking up that pick. Solar Scarabs, though, will grab something comfortable for Hurrywin right out the gate by grabbing Ymir to throw over into the dual lane. An immediate response to the Valkyries to pick up this Osiris, something that Scream on the Dragons has been playing a lot of as of recent, will now go into the hands of potentially Kirmi for the Valks.
Yeah, I mean, it was only a matter of time for Osiris to come back. The majority of his itemization still incredibly strong. Early damage certainly still there. Very survivable, decent bruiser items as well. I think Osiris had only really ever left the meta because the pros were like, man, we had to play him for 7 months straight. We don't want to do it anymore. So they were looking for any opportunity to kind of just court of public opinion shift him out of the meta rather than actual design shifting him out of the meta. So Osiris coming back, no surprise to me. Expect the Valkyries to play very aggressively around him throughout the early game. Does have some flex potential, but I would prefer to see it on Kirmi in the jungle. I do want to reiterate a couple of points, though, because I know we talked about it in the waiting room, but we haven't really brought it up on the desk just yet. Beads Aegis is back. That interaction is no longer bugged. So a lot of these guys that were completely dominant, that were dominating P's and B's, dictating the pace of the game that we're not seeing right now, things like the Vulcan or the heavy emphasis on just massive damage ultimates that we had seen previously, not getting prioritized as highly, is probably due to that. Beads and Aegis is now an allowed interaction. You can purchase both in conjunction.
Right, so things like Vulcan, maybe even Susanoo, Tsukiyomi, probably be seeing a little bit less of those in this week's, or at least less priority towards those picks. Along with the Osiris, Ishtar was locked in for the Valkyries, something for Wowie over into the dual lane, and then Mercury and Hades. Now over here for the Solar Scares. Mercury into the jungle, something that Sam for Soccer specifically, I mean, if we're talking all the way back into late Season 8, even early Season 9, this is a pick that was banned away just from him. Then Mercury became meta, and it was being banned across the board. Now still something that Sam seems to be able to want to go over to into the jungle to try and bring his team maybe a little bit of early mid presence.
Yeah, I like the Mercury pick because it does bring you the potential to just absolutely roll over an early game. But I would argue that the Mercury pick is more so, hey, do you guys remember how to play against it? I'm the only guy in the league, San for Soccer, that's playing Mercury Do my opposition understand what I am looking for? And every 6 or 7 months when he decides to bring it back out again, for a little while, people don't. But we have seen the Mercury recently, and it's a whole lot of early game up to level 5, I'm going to farm, and then I'm either going to walk to solo or I'm going to walk to duo through my lane, look for the ult, rinse, repeat. The way to beat Mercury jungle is to pressure him in the jungle so that he isn't choosing every engagement with Sonic Boom, or draft around it. Grab some walls that can deal with Sonic Boom pretty easily. Maybe you want to just prioritize a lot of pressure in your lane because his early fight isn't necessarily the strongest. It's more so the surprise factor of, whoa, there's another guy here. I'm excited to see it. I want to see this Mercury succeed for the Solar Scarabs because it's a pick that they've been able to rely on in the past. But the Valkyries strike me as a team, especially recently with how hungry they are, how close they are to breaking out of that bottom 2 slot. They've done their homework and they've realized that this is a pick that Sam's gone towards, what was it, about 2 weeks ago? And it was a very clear-cut, cookie-cutter approach to that early game. Farm up to 5, walk to duo, walk to solo, whichever one of your laners has higher pressure, and try and line up that ultimate.
Second wave of bans, Vulcan and Kukulkan by the Valhalla Valkyries. Still making sure to ban out some priority picks at least one of those we can call a Snoopy pick with the Vulcan. That's something that he liked to play even over in the duo lane. Kukulkan, maybe not so much a Snoopy god as it is a Solar Scarabs god.
I mean,
over
Snoopy
anything
likes
else. Snoopy has played it a little bit. And then Kabrakan and Fafnir on the opposite side of the board for the Solar Scarabs. As Athena gets locked in for the Valkyries, and Yu Huang for the Scarabs. Something very safe for Snoopy in that mid lane.
Something safe, but one that you really got to be on point mechanically to make work. That Yu Huang ultimate can make or break your team fight. The Dueling Dragons as an initiation tool at times is completely dominated on both base defense and siege. Fire Giant Dance is completely shaken up by that displacement. DPS incredibly high come late game. Survivability, as you said, probably the name of the game. As Snoopy is adapting to mid, pick a god that is a little bit easier to just make sure your positioning doesn't need to be perfect. Use that Celestial Flight, use the CC immunity Dueling Dragons to avoid some of this heavy engage, heavy dive potential that the Valkyries have already shown with their 4-man selection. Wow. That's something I wasn't expecting to see.
There we go.
Setups there. You've got the Osiris stun or root, Tear Fearless, Confound from Athena. Searing Pain going to be pretty consistent. Some of the CDR options as well. Getting some buffs recently. I thought we might see some shakeups from Benny, but I wasn't expecting to go here.
I wasn't expecting Raw Game 1 up against the Scarabs from BennyQ, but hey, here he is. A couple of change-ups and maybe some of the items out there that may have brought it through. Soul Gem did get a little bit of a buff, and that's something that really, even at the beginning of the year when Soul Gem was still not very meta, it was something that BennyQ specifically was building on just about every one of his gods. He's loved that item, and now with the buff to it going from 4 stacks to 3 in order to get the proc out there, might be seeing that come up a little bit more for BennyQ, but you talk about, the setup that you have for BennyQ, for the Valkyries, all the composition that is around this Raw, who is not the lone magical damage. Athena does have some decent damage in her eye, right? But not a whole lot, at least once the late game starts coming through. Talk to me a little bit about the Solar Scarabs composition, kind of how they can fight up against the Valkyries, Myth.
Well, if I'm the Solar Scarabs and I'm looking at Ra, I'm saying, that's awesome. Great for us. Ymir Wall right behind him. Good luck. I hope you have a Phantom Shell. Mercury being able to line up those Sonic Booms should come a little bit more consistently as Ra doesn't have any traditional movement tool. A little bit of additional movement speed when he's using that kit from his passive, but movement speed, not exactly the best at avoiding a global ultimate. You generally want to dash or leap for situations like that. Hades as well. Just catch him with the Pillars of Agony, and you're getting beats every single time. There's no other response for a Ra, unless he tries to blitz you, but Raw DPS not exactly enough that I think he's going to be able to deal with all the mitigations that Hades has in kit. Otherwise, Yu Huang, Medusa, I mean, they don't really have any overly interesting interactions with Raw. I suppose Medusa with that acid spray, having a little bit of anti-heal on it, should be able to keep Raw lower HP in some of these team fights, but my primary concern is that 3-man core of Ymir, Mercury, and Hades. Those are the picks on the Solar Scarabs that can make it very, very difficult to operate as a Ra.
Now we'll kind of have to see how some of the change-ups to Hades specifically, he did receive a slight nerf in this last patch. A little bit less damage on the detonate damage from Devour Souls out there, though. I don't think that'll affect his laning phase too much, considering just how easy it is for a Hades to jump in there, kind of get that clear through. So solo lane, the tier versus Hades, feels like not a whole lot's going to happen until maybe those two rotate in there. For the junglers, and you were talking about how this Mercury wants to get involved very early, try and get these Sonic Booms down the lane. If you're Kirby on this Osiris, maybe where you're trying to put some pressure to try and force that Mercury maybe to your side of the map, or try and force this Mercury out of the jungle entirely.
Osiris has a couple of avenues to dealing with Mercury. If you want, Osiris gets involved at level 1. Mercury gets involved at level 5. So you've got about a 5-level buffer where Osiris is just going to be stronger on map. But otherwise, if you don't want to really put that pressure in lane, Osiris is so good at bullying the enemy jungle. Walk into his back camps, apply some autos, and all of a sudden this Mercury can't do much.
Well, we'll see if the Valkyries can get that win and push themselves close to the 6, or can the Scarabs find an upset? Game number 1 with Gore and Trelly.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how this one goes. And thanks to the desk for breaking it down as we jump into this one. Trelly, you are the most excited I think I've seen you in at least a week when that Raw got locked in. And then I laughed because I looked at you and I said, but now they can get Aegis.
Yeah.
It feels like he missed his prime.
I think so as well, but I think the idea here from Benny Q is that now Benny Q can also get Aegis. So the Raw inherently becomes safer as well.
Yeah.
You know, you're worried about the big burst damage from Yu Huang, you're worried about the
Good point.
the Petrify, and now you can get yourself a little Aegis. So maybe that was the call here from Benny Q. But he had such a fantastic performance on Raw the last time we saw him play it very, very long ago. And I've just been wondering, when's the Benny Q Raw come back? And turns out, it's today.
It's today.
When Valks the 6th is on the line, Benny Q pulls out Raw in his prime. I just came up with that.
That was nice.
Thanks, appreciate that.
You know what? I've heard worse things at 11 a.m. on a Thursday morning from my own mouth. So, yeah, no, I'm proud of you for that one. But it feels like it's going to be fun to watch, right? A lot of good setup. You've got Osiris, who's going to have a lot of slows in there, make it easier to hit your shots. You got a freeze, you got a stun, you got Hades. A lot of fun things to maybe try and line things up over there towards, I think, for both of these mid-laners. I'm also really worried. I feel like Snoopy, and Mifflin had kind of mentioned this, but and we had talked about it earlier on Waiting Room, not necessarily your mainstay mid-laner, as we've seen in the past. But you do get a lot of, I want to say, like, self-sufficiency when you're playing a Yu Huang, right? You're pretty safe. You can pull people in as long as you're hitting your ult. Like, that's the hardest thing to hit, and you have to imagine that Snoopy's been able to practice that. Otherwise, he does a lot of good damage, and he has some good CC. We're seeing some of that damage now onto Benny Q. And when you have that plus Sam on Mercury, it feels like this could really link together pretty well in mid.
Yeah, certainly could. I think you're right to highlight the fact that, you know, not the traditional mid laner, but it's interesting because when I think of Snoopy, I don't think of ADCs, I think of Vulcan. Like, even though he was an ADC, he always did play that Vulcan in that long lane. So
And he leveled his turret first for a while there. He stopped it, but he did for a while. It might be
is just not
troublesome.
caring.
Yeah, Kirmi just running at Snoopy right now. Unfortunately, going to miss the sickle. That could have been a first blood pretty easily. Kirmi still no cares in the world.
I mean, why would you be worried about a Mercury with Eye of the Jungle when you're an Osiris with Mannequin Scepter, right? You should be dominating the jungle in the early. Scary D has a full wave to worry about, so that blue buff certainly going to be invaded and taken. Aquarius will be able to pick up that one. So already off to not the best start, but I like that Scary D has went for the beads time and time again. We've seen him go towards the teleport and get punished for it. Probably recognized there's a lot of setup and damage on the side of the Valks. I'm going to make sure that I'm safe in this lane with that bead. So Scary D, despite losing the blue buff, should be just fine survivability-wise over in this lane. But Kirmi playing to the strengths of this Osiris. I think you're always going to be able to win these boxing matches versus a Mercury this early on. So W key. I mean, that's the name of the game for him, and I hope he continues that playstyle.
Also feels, I mean, very much like what you just said, right? You've got a tier, you've got CC for days. Speaking of CC for days, Gamma, taunt, body blocks are good, but you need a little more assistance here. Netroid is able to slither out of that one.
He dashed into
alive.
the wall.
Yeah, I mean, look, sometimes you don't get punished, and that's one of those moments where you don't get punished. With Sam over here, you have to imagine some aggression from the Scarabs could come out. Wowie has to play carefully. And Sam's not feeling confident enough to go in. If he hits level 5, maybe. But it's still, I'm pretty sure, far way off for him. So we're not going to get to see too much explosions over there. It doesn't slow Gamma down from just being a nuisance on the Netroid. And I don't know, with that taunt, with the Mez, the damage output, I mean, they're not going for the kill. Netroid's got to play it safe.
Yeah, Benny Q's on the way over, though.
No.
Looks like he's just going to snipe onto Hurrywin. Was looking for the kill on the Netroid, was not able to find it. But great plays by Hurrywin, by the way. That meditation and the wall definitely made sure that Netroid could not get punished there and is able to stick around a bit longer in lane. So just some good peel from his support. As the Valhalla Valkyries are still trying to get active. I mean, Benny Q has been power farming on this Raw. And it just seems like, you know, that's the benefit of a pick like this. You've got your own self-sustain. You're able to just run to farm as quickly as possible. Sam for Soccer, sitting at level 4, where BennyQ is by himself zoning away from these mid-camps. Sure, Snoopy's level 5 has ultimate, but those dueling dragons don't hit that crazy at level 5.
Yeah, and I think we saw the same thing just a second ago with the Raw anyway. Scary D, you mentioned the Valkyries wanting to play aggressive. It's not limited to BennyQ making rotations. It's over here on the right lane. Unfortunately, seems like they aren't going to get anything they wanted. Blue buff dropped down there for Scary, and they're able to walk on out of there without picking up a kill. So, solid for the Scarabs that they've avoided first blood so far, though not through the efforts of the Valkyrie, or lack of effort from the Valkyries. They want these fights to keep going.
Those 4 minions, they all got caught looking. Every single one of them turned to stone there. They were all looking at Netroid after that ultimate. Just wanted to clear the wave and get back as quickly as possible. Well, he was hiding around the corner, but, you know, wasn't really looking for a fight. And at the very least, Netroid backs for the Dev Gauntlets. That's probably why. Felt good just ulting, wanted to get in and out as quickly as possible and not punished in any way, shape, or form. Get your little Dev Gauntlets online and get back to wave ready to farm up. That's the call. As Kirmi is going to be able to steal away the Greater Scorpion. And this is sort of what happens when you pick a pick like Mercury. You're just not quite online yet. The Golden Blade is going to help you farm well, but you're not looking to fight. Same for Soccer, though. Might be able to catch out a little bit of aggression here because Kirmi is very low.
Low, Sam has ult. You start to expect that, especially with a Raw on the other side, depending on where BennyQ starts to stand. It could be a very problematic thing for the Valkyries that Sam just exists on this Mercury. But it is very much a conversation point in the jungle, right? Like, if you look at the mid laners, both of them are going to do better with time as it goes on. You look at solo laners, Tyr brings a lot of CC, Pillar of Agony, Hades has been a very, very important factor. Athena and Ymir, while they do different things, still provide a lot of setup for the team. And then you got your hunters. It feels like the junglers, though, are where things are very different between these two teams, because you've got a late game hyper carry in the Mercury. And while we've seen Osiris's carry in late game, it's the moments right now, right? You're level 3 onward for the Osirises that typically are super strong. Is there a timer? Like, is there like a timer for Kirmi specifically that is going to cap off at some point where Sam's just going to overtake him?
I definitely think that the Osiris falls off and falls off hard, but Kirimi's not necessarily on a timer because the rest of his team does have some great late game presence. I think the Ishtar and the Ra are always going to be just fine, especially with this much setup from Gamma. Something like that. I mean, good double taunt.
Wow, pulls in 2 damage, almost enough onto Netroid. The beads are going to be a little more powerful.
Benny.
Slowed down. Wall is only okay. They're looking for it. They need the last bit of damage. The sickle able to find it, and Kirmi knocks down Heroin for first blood. The Valkyries starting things off. But Gamma's low. Benny's low. Sam's over here.
They're hiding.
Has his ult. And instead it's going to be Sam who gets jumped on. Nice dash, avoids the slow. Lord of the Afterlife chases them down. Sam channeling the ult. Can't tell if he wants to go in or out. It seems like the Valkyries want out here if they're forcing some utility from the Scarabs. They get first blood and they feel good about it.
Yeah, that was a beautiful snipe from Benny. Not enough damage to finish that kill onto Netroid, but Sam does let it fly. Gonna grab the beads from the Rob. BennyQ doing a lot of damage.
Luckily, Scary D is there, or else that kill maybe turns around. Sam off the mark with the ult, but on the mark with the assistance. No way. Does Aquarius does not have Blink, has his ult.
I thought he was going for it.
I think he would have if he had seen just a little more of Sam, and specifically seen Sam backing. Probably would have jumped in and maybe gone for something big. Aquarius has been maybe the larger talk of the Valkyries the last couple of weeks, right? You know, Kirmi, I think Benny have had a lot of really good performances throughout this year. Wowie and Gamma stepped up this phase, specifically into phase 2, really started to come together. But Aquarius the last couple of weeks has felt like the saving grace of otherwise losses for the Valkyries.
Yeah, he's been popping off. I mean, he was our MVP as of the week prior, but looks like a good blink on a Gamma, good CC chain as well.
Wow, yeah, the wall almost good enough, and even with the charge time that it takes for the Athena dash, it's still going to be enough to get Gamma out of there. Sam's low. Benny had ult, absolute danger. Benny does not have ult, so less than absolute danger. Still kind of dangerous. The Raw Beam does a lot of damage.
It does.
If he can throw it out, but not enough range to be able to lock him down. Admittedly, still feels pretty good, right? If you're the Scarabs here, you're able to get out alive, but for the Valkyries, it's TKOs that you otherwise wouldn't have had, forcing backs a little early, giving yourself presence in the jungle to clear some of the neutral farm. It feels like they're still playing that aggressive style that we saw earlier this game and trying to capitalize on everything they can.
Yeah, certainly does seem like it. I like that Sam's been getting active, but unfortunately, I believe Snoopy was off the mark on that ultimate. If it connects, Gamma might be in trouble. Sam doesn't have any beats, though. Good blocks on the dash. Is able to get out just fine, though. Gamma was trying to make sure that special delivery got blocked and held on to it perfectly. Was Sam for soccer, but you were talking about the aggression, and now the Valks, look at this red buff.
Yeah, this much fight over a red buff 10 minutes in. Maybe not something that we expect to see. Petrify comes out, finds a stun onto Kirmi. Gamma's low, dash is good. Netroid instead is the one who gets chunked down. Wowie, credit for that one, sending his opposing hunter into the grave, and that opens up a Gold Fury pull for the Solar Scarabs. They're going to sit around half health. Everyone's showing face around here. Valks are relatively low. You're going to have Mercury coming in. He's going to ult forward. Not going to be on time, but now they have the fight in their favor. Gamma gets killed off, but Sam trades his life for it. Snoopy's rotating in, but is it too late to help his team out? Heroin is low and killed off thanks to Wowie. The Valks with a massive set of kills, and the Fury are feeling real solid 10 minutes in.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be the win for the Valks. They're going to get the Fury and trade 1 for 2. That's something they are certainly down for. 2 kills going over to Wowie, 2 in total for Kirmi as well. That's 4-2, and that gold is still climbing here in favor of the Valhalla Valkyries. You've been talking about aggression, and I think that's exactly what they're playing towards. Anytime they see a fight, they're going for it. Whether it's a red buff invade or a Gold Fury pull after the invade, they're just trying to get as aggressive as possible and use this early lead that they have built for themselves. Off the back of some great setup from Gamma, and good follow-up. I mean, this is not a single taunt has been wasted, right? It's always followed up just like that, just because you can. They weren't going to kill Snoopy, but hey, might as well throw an ult just to get him weak and send him back to base.
I mean, you know, either you kill him, potentially you get his beads, or you force him to feel really awkward over the next few minutes and open up opportunities on the map like this one. The Pyromancer, started by the Valkyries. Without the raw ults, you know, you're going to be missing the, big blanket, hey, you've got the best secure in the game right now. But it doesn't really matter. There's no Scarabs around that you need to worry about securing it over. So it feels really solid for the Valkyries. Level 12 now over level 11 there for Snoopy.
Oh boy.
So this is just going to be an onslaught. Really solid retaliation so far from Scary D. Good healing thanks to Hades, but there's 3 people here. And even with the beads, you're taking a lot of damage. Benny Q's in the jungle as well. His ult's about to come off cooldown. Feels like maybe we could have seen something a little more, but they're not messing around too much, Jelly. They're making sure that their aggression is pointed and meaningful. So they're going to let Scary D off the hook this time.
Gamma is currently zoning Sam off his own back camps as the level 9 Athena.
Just the back camps, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just back camps. Now Gamma's going to have to try and get out of here. Good wall by Heroin. Could start the siege. It looks like Gamma's getting burned down slowly but surely.
Yeah, half health already. There's going to be Defender of Olympus. Just has to get out in time, but won't. Shards of Ice. Able to get that last little bit of burst. That's always the downside of the Athena ult. How long it takes. That's honestly a lot of her, like her dash and her ult. It's the amount of time that it takes before it goes off. That causes a lot of trouble. Luckily maintains Defender of Olympus there. Caught out. Maybe a little greedy from Gamma. But it doesn't open up a lot of opportunities for the Scarabs. You're still looking at a 4,500 gold lead. Maybe even pushing up towards the 5,000 mark pretty soon if they can continue farming the way they have for the Valkyries.
Yeah, they've been looking real solid. Samver Soccer has been consistent looking for these ults onto Benny Q, but sidestepped that one in the wall from Heroin. No good, so Benny Q held on to the relics that time around, but it does seem to be both of these mid laners are prioritizing that buffed soul gem. I mean, already Snoopy's completed it and Benny Q building into it shortly as well, so the rise of the mage items are back currently in the mid lane, and that's what we've been calling for.
I did. Well, I might have to hold that thought. Gamma, once again, getting poked out. Benny Q looping around the side. Not going to have too much going on for the Valkyries here. They're probably going to fall back. I was going to ask. It feels nice. Like, we got 2 mages just going head-to-head in mid. Like, this feels good,
This
right?
does feel good. I'm loving this. I mean, this is what we were calling for. Once again, Heroin taunted in a lot of CC, but it's going to take a while to burn through the Shamir as well.
Yeah, Heroin slowly getting whittled down. Even Benny Q's ult seemed to barely touch him. Luckily, they dumped enough into him eventually. 3 ults will get it done. Hurry taken down. It's a 5-3 kill lead, but about a 5,000 gold lead. Might be even more than that. Scary going for a fight. Benny uses the Aegis. and immunes out a majority of that. Sam just gets deleted thanks to the help of the Raw. Scary D follows shortly thereafter. They lose Kierme, but they opened up a lot. The problem is, Shelly, 14 minutes. There's no Fury. There's no Pyromancer up. You can't really go for a Fire Giant this early. The Valkyries, they get a lot there, but not a lot to do with it.
Yeah, they don't have much to try and set up for either.
They've been winning too hard already.
Yeah, that actually is the call. I want to see Emp Armor frenzies and immediately looking towards that Fire Giant because nowhere else to go but up if you're the Valkyries. With that Oni Fury spawning in here shortly and a 4,600 gold lead, you have to imagine at least getting some vision on that left side of the map is going to be the play here. Trying to force some objectives, trying to force this lead. Because we've already talked about it. Sanford Soccer, late game, can certainly delete some of these carries on the side of the Valks. At the moment, has not been able to get too active. Has sent some Sonic Booms through, but more often than not has been dying. I mean, 0-2, 4 assists, has been getting active, but not rewarded for it too often. And you'd love to give some of these kills over to your Mercury. Unfortunately, Hurrywin has actually got credit for 2 of them, which is fine. You know, giving kills to your support's all well and good, but you want some extra crit on that Merc, and you want some extra items as well.
Yeah, trying to get that rage stacked up. I mean, we have seen, I think, more Mercuries falter because of an unstacked rage. Maybe not just the unstacked rage.
Yeah.
It's caused the trouble for him, but definitely been a contributing factor. That's 2 stacks, so it's not the end of the world just yet. We'll see where it goes. There's still plenty of game to be played. Potentially right over here onto Aquarius, who is laughing at the 79 damage that was being dealt per punch there from Sam. So maybe not the target that they would have liked. Ult down now for Sam as well. So Aquarius gets to continue bullying with Hurry, Snoopy, and Sam in the jungle, though. You have to imagine this tier is going to be feeling a little in danger. No ult to his name. There's going to be one Fearless Dash, Pillar of Agony, going to force the next one. Wall's good. Defender of Olympus being dropped onto Aqua. He's got the mitigations. He's staying alive. He's still going on. And they've got the peel necessary to get their solo laner out of there. Not only do they save Aqua, they get a kill. Kierme has to play careful, though. He's getting low. Nice snipe from Binny on to Scary. Forces the rest of the Scarabs back. And somehow, some way, the Valkyries walk out of that one alive. It's that 35% damage mitigation, putting in a lot of extra work right there.
Yeah, you may have heard me say, oh no, and that was the second I saw Gamma ult, and I was like, there's a good to fair chance Aqua gets out, and they dropped 4 ultimates onto this tier, and we're still not able to confirm that kill. To his credit, Aquarius is extremely tanky, level 16 this tier. You know, got the beads down early on, used the Lawbringer to escape, but still, just being able to fearless out of the Pillar of Agony as well as not care about the damage. Doesn't seem like anti-heal was really a priority for the Solar Scarab, so getting some good benefits out of that power cleave as well for the tier. I mean, you put a lot into the tier basket. Unfortunately, we're not rewarded. The Solar Scarabs at least still trying to get active, and that's what you can applaud, right? They're not just sitting back and losing. They're trying to find picks. They're trying to force fights. Unfortunately, nothing is working. And the Valhalla Valkyries are able to grab both of these neutral objectives once again. Push that gold lead to a solid 8,000. Got to imagine Fire Giant is on the horizon.
Yeah, now we're at that point where you're talking a fight like we saw in mid, 3 minutes ago? All of a sudden, that is just a Fire Giant at the end of it. So they have to play carefully. You know, Netroid, a new pickup for this team. Haven't talked too much about the duo lane, which is admittedly probably a good thing, right? Like maybe he hasn't been making splashes, but it hasn't necessarily been going negatively. 0-1 and 0, nothing too crazy. Snoopy's 1-0 and 3. So far, feeling pretty solid as far as his mid lane performance goes. 100% kill participation. Still a little behind in terms of pressure on Vinny here. This has been the conversation around him. And Mifflin had said it earlier that he thought that this was maybe going to be the best iteration of the Scarabs we could see. Probably not immediately, right?
Yeah, I think that's the key.
Give it a little bit of time in the oven. It could be amazing.
Yeah, you definitely got to give them some time to cook up. But with the build that BennyQ has gone for here, it looks like the Fire Giant is going to be immediately burned through. Raw Snipe is available, and only Scary D is relatively close, but you can see, heading to the left side of the map are the Solar Scarabs. They know this is going on, and they want nothing to do with it. First Fire Giant of the game goes down 18 minutes in, and the Valks, they're looking for the tier 2 over and right. The Scarabs trying to get as much free farm as they can before they actually have to defend these Phoenixes. Probably a smart call.
Yeah,
You know, try and put some gold in your pockets for the time being. The Solar Scarab should back in time. But it looks like Gamma's charging up that dash just in case someone shows up. I don't imagine a 19-minute Phoenix is on the cards. So the Valks will just back up, spend some of that gold, regroup, and then look towards these other two Tier 2 towers in mid and left.
I was wondering if the Scarabs were going to try and push for that Tier 2 and left. Because we've seen a lot of teams do that where they'll like, oh, they've got Fire Giant, they're going to get a Tier 2, let's make the race, let's run for it. And then they lose a Phoenix because they spend all of that time over there trying to chunk through a tower while a team with Fire Giant just runs at your base. So glad to see him back off. Might even be able to see a little bit more. BennyQ and a little bit of trouble here. Chunks down Sam and is saved thanks to the help of Wowie. A couple of autos out there do so much work, and it's not just that one. They find Scary D as well off the back of a beautiful ultimate from the carry here for the Valkyries. Kiermi getting aggressive. Doesn't need the mitigations. No Gamma. Just wants to get involved in this fight. Unfortunately, involved he is. Snoopy turns that one around, pulls Aqua forward. At least makes it a 1-for-2 trade. Strips a single Fire Giant off and maybe makes it a little more difficult for the Fire Giant or for the Valkyries to continue their siege.
Yeah, unfortunately for the Valks, they still do have access to the heals from BennyQ, so the sustained fight is not going to be an issue at the moment. With Gamma gone, he's not going to be able to help out set up for these snipes or anything like that, but BennyQ is sending out some damage through the wall, just trying to be annoying as this Tier 2 tower goes down very slowly thanks to the wall from Hurrywind, and since it's a 4v3 and Sanford Sucker's already back, probably a smart call to give that one up and head towards the Gold Fury. So the Valks up about 11,000 gold now. But they're still not going to bite off more than they can chew. They're not going to go underneath this tower without the rest of their team. Probably a smart call. If you take a look at the relics, pretty much everything down for the Solar Scarabs except for Sam, who didn't really use anything during that engagement, and Netroid, who went relatively untouched in that team fight. Everyone else probably doesn't want to be fighting right now.
Trying to stay safe, especially when you look at the Valkyries, right? Yeah. Like, they do not want to be engaged too deep. And if you think about it, you get the Fury, you got a Tier 2, it's a lot of gold, you're getting upgrades. I see the Compassion, the Pendulum of Ages being locked in. And so you're feeling pretty confident about that. Some backs still yet to be had for the Valkyries. And still a minute and a half on the power play that you've got the belt around you. So a lot to work with this FG still. Only the 2 kills that they found there. Maybe some room for aggression. But where do you, I mean, they've got minions pushed up slightly on left and mid. Can they confidently siege a Tier 2? Like, that Ymir causes so much trouble trying to knock those towers down if it's a 5-on-5 contest.
I think, you know, as long as it's a 5v5 and Gamma's setting up for the team, dashing in, doing that sort of thing, then a Tier 2 tower should be no problem. But because Gamma was dead, and as you said, Hurrywind was you know, on point with the walls, it does stall a bit of what you're able to do underneath the Tier 2 towers. So I think the Valks were just playing that one safe. They recognize they are very far ahead, but also their chances of breaking in to the top 6 start here, right? You gotta make sure you're getting a win just to start off that train right. So as slow as possible seems to be the call. 30 seconds left on this FG, and the Valks are running down the left side of the map, but the rest of the Scarabs grouped up on the Bracer. They're gonna be going a little bit faster, doing a bit more damage, and Sanford Soccer charging up that ultimate from just out of Phoenix range.
This is where a lot of changes can happen in the blink of an eye. Sam, still only 2 stacks on that Rage, but his ult gets him in deep. Potentially able to lock down Wowie or BennyQ, could be a massive target. He's got to be careful how long he keeps it charged though, right? Like, the longer the distance it goes, you don't necessarily want to end up at the Tier 1. You want to be in that fight. So he has to play it carefully. Doesn't seem like the Scarabs want to go in. They surrender that tower. But it's the last thing they surrender for that Fire Giant. It wears off. The Valkyries back and reset one more time. For that extra 300 gold anybody got on the team is going to make a big difference. Like for Aquarius, you can see some buys coming through. It's definitely going to give them some vision, time to set up for the next Fire Giant.
This is an interesting build that BennyQ's gone for. He does have the percentage pen, he's got the soul gem, but it looks like because Scary D is building full damage, you know, you don't really have to worry about the Soul Reaver or anything like that. He's going for full one-shot potential onto the carries, and possibly an E-Staff last item just for some extra survivability. I highly doubt a Gem of ISO's coming through for the Raw, but hey, if anyone was to do it, I'd be like, yeah, it was BennyQ? Yeah, that kind of makes sense. You know, that seems like something he would try, but I imagine the Ethereal Staff just for some extra survivability.
The aggressive heals for the slows as opposed to keeping your team alive.
Yeah, just drop the heal. It's going to nerf some of Sanford Soccer's damage if he doesn't have the slow immunity up, and that's the call. But Fire Giant touches back down, second of the game. And same as last one, there are no Valks in sight. They are all on the left side of the map, possibly trying to grab a tier 2 tower, but with the base exposed and right, you got to imagine those backs are going to be pretty closely timed. Everyone, actually, Sam and Netroid did unhinge their back, so maybe staying for one more wave. If they hurry up, the Valks might get a good siege over on right.
Yeah, they've got the Phoenix wave with them. You can see the backs now coming through. They got a wave, the Scarabs did, that is, under the tier 2 to get some extra damage. Kiermi currently sieging the last tier 2 the Scarabs have on the map. In mid, is going to knock that one down pretty freely. Takes a couple of shots for his trouble. Phoenixes. Trelly, pre-30 minutes, Phoenixes are so difficult. And this is going to be one of those instances. I don't think the Scarabs have much reason to step beyond the current line of scrimmage, which is their Phoenix line. And the Valks don't have a lot of ways, other than maybe just one really good taunt or one really good fearless, to pull them out of there.
Yeah, I'm definitely not leaving without the squad, and I'm not stepping up past our own buffs if we don't have vision. That's probably the call, especially with, you know, Gamma always
Honestly,
lurking.
even with vision, it's a little,
Yeah,
a little shaky.
It is a little sketchy, especially if you know someone's waiting around the corner. Just because of the amount of follow-up and damage, we've been talking a lot about the snipes from BennyQ, but Wowie is essentially full slotted here, missing just the Deathbringer. Besides that, has the Death's Embrace, or the Death's Temper rather, and tons of attack speed with the double crit. So this Ishtar, you walk around the wrong corner and you're getting bursted through as well. So you got to be careful at any moment. I mean, San Soccer and Scary D are over on the right side of the map trying to get as much farm as possible before this next siege continues. Looks like a solid 2 minutes and 30 seconds of Fire Giant. And the Valkyries are surging forward. The rest of the Scarabs are showing up, but you just got to keep your eyes on Gamma. Where's that taunt going to land? Who's going to be burning their beads first? Especially if the follow-up from Wowie and BennyQ's on point.
Damage right here could be massive. Wowie, you had mentioned him, 4-0-4. Kind of a very, I want to say silent, not even silent. He's had some really explosive moments, but sneaky. And getting a very solid KDA. It's a 3-2 split for the Valkyries. Aquarius, Kiermi putting some pressure on mid. Fire Giant, they still got 2 minutes left for the power play. The Trebuchet coming down left. BennyQ, everybody has their ult, but the Raw specifically can change so much of this game with one late game snipe. You had mentioned it. He's going for potential one-tap potential. So maybe all he needs is a hit on a Snoopy, a hit on a Netroid, maybe even Scary D. He could just delete someone from the game. So far, though, they're playing it safe, just trying to keep the Trebuchet alive, get some long-range poke.
And this has been the call for a lot of these teams against the Ymir. You know, if you're too afraid to step up, you don't want to get walled off, you don't want to burn a Phantom Shell, play off your Trebuchet. And it looks like already Netroid's going to lose those beads. And the snipe comes through, almost deletes Netroid, but doesn't quite have the damage.
Oh, but they get themselves the opening they need. The wall was down for a second there. The freeze comes back up, but it only grabs Gamma. The wall. Got a timeout. Trebuchet getting some damage done. The Valkyries were able to chunk a little more of that Phoenix down. That's 3 ults gone on the side of the Valkyries, 2 traded out on the Scarabs. They've got raw healing.
3 more Trebuchet shots is by my calculations. 2.
1.
And they
walked in to deal with it, and they just delete Netroid. I mean, I don't know where he was trying to go, but it was back to base ultimately for him. The Valkyries able to find a kill there. They get the Phoenix as well. 30 seconds left on the Fire Giant. Minions in mid starting to favor him with the numbers advantage. Shelly, they could keep pushing. Sam just ulted in and creates an interesting scenario. Where do you focus? You focus ahead. They go for Snoopy. They delete him from the board. They're looking at Scary D. They get rid of him too. Now a minute without 2 of their members. 30 seconds still until Netroid is back. It's a 5v2, and the Valkyries, with a strong surge forward in game 1, are going to set themselves ahead for the set.
This is what I've been waiting for. I wanted to see the BennyQ Raw. I wanted to see a good meta for it, and it turns out with these mage itemization changes, this is exactly what the Valkyries were waiting for. Some good engage from Gamma consistently. Kiermi was playing to the strength of this Osiris so well. I'm not even going to harp on Aquarius because he's been making these plays, right? This is nothing new. But I think the team as a whole, they look very much in their element in a meta like this.
Now this is where it can be, again, a little more convoluted, because if you're looking at this for the Scarabs, again, we've been having a lot of conversation around what are they going to look like, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a team that just went through some, unfortunately, massive changes for them, right? 2 new members cycling in at the very end of the phase. But if you're looking at the other side for the Valkyries, it's not just this win that matters. It's game number 2, you got to find that one. And whether that, I mean, if you could go 3, that's maybe not a very promising sign, but as long as you get the win, that's what they're focused on because their
Absolutely.
eyes, like you said, are still on that 6th place, still hoping a little bit for some demise on the Bolts as well as success for the Valkyries. We'll see how that ends up shaking out, whether they can do that or if the Scarabs will give us a surprise here in game number 2 right after this quick break.
You give me hope with everything that you do. I make so much progress when I'm here with you. You hold all the pieces, all of me in your hands. Wait for me while I pick up the pieces, turning things around. And maybe things won't get better, so wait for me. On
hashtag Valks6 is now one game closer to getting to that point, with the Valkyries taking game number 1. And the reason that they want to be 6 is because they want a chance to have an easier qualification to the SMITE World Championships, because more than just SMITE, though, is being played at the SMITE World Championship, and more than just SMITE is being taken place at all. We're going to have our 9th annual cosplay contest, so that way any old regular person, well, at least somebody who might be good at cosplay, can enter that as well. So make sure that you go and try and enter the cosplay contest happening. SmiteGame.com/SWC for more information and details on that. It's the 9th annual cosplay contest and a $9,000 prize pool at stake for entry levels of all skills for cosplayers. So if you think that you can do it, go ahead and throw your entry out there, and maybe we'll see you on the stage at the SMITE World Championship. So once again, make sure to go to SmiteGame.com/SWC for more information on that. The Valkyries in game number 1, though, Mifflin, I think did exactly as you were asking for. Put some pressure in the jungle, make sure that Sam really can't get the ball rolling for the Solar Scarabs. Valhalla Valkyries are able to kind of get off a little bit earlier this game and really establish that lead that they need for themselves. And unfortunately for the Scarabs, they just start falling a little too far behind for them to come back in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked what we'd seen from the Valkyries. Wowie out-rotating Netroid to get around to those mid-team fights looked very good. Kirmi chasing Sam through the jungle as Sam's just walking around praying he gets level 5. He's got an Osiris just chop, chop, chop the entire time. That was perfect pressure from the Valkyries. In a composition where the Solar Scarabs needed to make it to the late game, needed to find those late game team fights, play around their wombo combos, the Valkyries said, well, you got to get in the early game first, and that's really hard to do when you're all over the map, like BennyQ was, like Kirmi was, like Gamma was. So the Valkyries really understood what their draft was capable of. They understood what the Solar Scarabs draft was capable of, and then they executed on their counterplay. Great stuff, man. The only thing I would have said I would have liked to see a little bit more from the Solar Scarabs was that initial team fight that did go well for the Scarabs was a rotation from Scary D. Just jumps on Benny, says, hey man, you're raw. You don't have an answer to Pillars of Agony. Easy pickup. But since then, Scary D didn't exactly match rotations with Aqua, which is easier said than done when a team is, what was it, 5,000 gold up, like 10 minutes in, like the Valhalla Valkyries was. It's pretty difficult to find opportunities to match rotations because you have to be so concerned about the 1v1s on walking in the jungle. A couple of times we saw Netroid consider rotating to a mid-team fight, but he had to play wary because their vision wasn't exactly strong. There was a bit of a ward gap on duo's side. And then Wowie's hiding in the jungle. Wowie wins that 1v1 because he's so far ahead. So the Valks find their early lead, they play well around it, and they mitigate the strengths of the Scarabs draft.
And I think that last little highlight is a perfect indication of just how the state of the game was. Sam for Soccer sonic booms past 4 people, and everyone at the Valks turned and went, oh, he's that? All right, well, we'll just go kill everybody else then. Thanks for leaving us an opening there, Sam. And they just walk in, take down the Phoenix, and then end up running out game number 1. So the Valkyries now 1 game closer to their 3rd set win of the phase, their 5th set win of the season as far as the regular season of play is concerned out there. And that much closer to making sure that they can guarantee themselves to be out of that 8th seed, which would be, if I'm not mistaken, the first time in franchise history for the Valkyries that they are out of that 8th seed spot.
Yeah, at least this year. I can give you the permanent guarantee
right,
on
for
at least this year they have an 8th seed every single phase. As of now, the Valkyries in a pretty good position, especially with a win in this set, to make sure that that doesn't happen once more. I'm excited to see it. I expect heavy adaptations from the Solar Scarabs, though. They lost on pressure. Very often we see teams in the SPL, when they do lose as heavily on pressure as we saw in Game 1, say, look, man, we just got to draft it ourselves. Fight fire with fire. I think it is likely that that shift up probably occurs in either mid. Yu Huang wasn't really doing them as much pressure as I would have liked. The Ymir had a very hard time setting up positions for him, or maybe in the jungle as well.
Well, we'll see if those adaptations are made for game number 2 as we jump into the picks and bans between the Scarabs and the Valks. Immediately out the gate, those Scarabs will continue up their same bans from game number 1 with the Daji, Yamoja on the opposite side for the Valkyries. Now for the Scarabs, you know, the Ymir was the first pick that came out through the team in game number 1. It was the first god that was picked up outside of the banning phase. And I think you're right to maybe talk about some of the struggles that the Ymir Medusa combo kind of had in the lane up against the Athena and the Ishtar. But is the dual lane maybe the only spot out there? I mean, I know you talked about the Yu Huang struggle a little bit earlier as well. So do you think just total composition change from the Scarabs, or just touch up on 1 or 2 things?
I mean, I wouldn't mind if the Solar Scarabs go back towards a Ymir, or even first pick a support here like Atlas instead. Would be the Ishtar Locket, take one away from the Valks, and a matchup that I think Netroid would be a little bit more comfortable in now. But yeah, I don't think that the Scarabs need to go completely back to the drawing board. Individual picks obviously work. Ymir always going to be good. Hades always going to be good out of the soul lane, even with some Bancroft's Claw nerfs recently. I think it really is just find a jungle that can follow up on the playstyle you want from your mid 3v3. And the mid 3v3 for the Solar Scarabs, when you look at Yuhong and you look at Ymir, is let's get aggressive. Mercury couldn't quite hang in some of those deeper team fights that they were looking for early on. And by the time you fall behind, well, Mercury just doesn't do a whole lot there either.
Yeah, I mean, by the end of that game, it was a 16,000 gold deficit when Samet ulted through 4 people, and then, well, those 4 people just completely ignored him out in that regard. The Valkyries go for Ymir Atlas for their top 2. Ymir for likely Gamma, Atlas for maybe Benny Q, probably Benny Q, though I'll keep him in the air. It could go over to Aqua in the Soul Lane. We have seen Atlas go over there. 3 roles so far that the Atlas has been played. You think this is the Valk kind of playing around a little bit, Mifflin?
No.
No?
When I walked past their booth, I was expecting smiles on the Valkyries' faces. I was expecting celebrations, excitement. These guys are all business today. They have got to have, and there's no way they haven't, have just a little bit of anxiety about this set, because really the end of their phase almost entirely rides on this set. Because when you look at the Jade Dragons, even with the Valkyries playing as well as they have, considering that's a part of their triple header this week, probably not a set they're super excited for. They may have already written that one off. They'll obviously try, but the Jade Dragons are looking real hot right now. If the Valkyries want to keep their phase alive, they need to win here. This is not a troll. They think Ymir and Atlas has what it takes.
You know, something that I think it was PBM who actually tweeted out, you know, it's talking about the Valks to 6th to 7th to 8th, whatever it may have been. And then he said, you know, their fate kind of rests in our hands. And I think there's a little bit of truth as to what Mike was saying there, because if the Valks and the Bolts both win their sets today, then that's still that two game differential, that 2-set difference out there. Both teams end up playing against the Dragons over the course of tomorrow and Saturday. If the Valks lose and the Bolts end up winning, that's the end of the line right there for the Valks at the very least. If they both lose to the Dragons, well, then we get to the end of the week and it gets a little bit more interesting out in that regard.
That last set could be so interesting.
I'm just like, I've never wanted to zoom through an entire week of SPL to get to the last set of the week. Even if that set ends up meaning absolutely nothing, I still kind of want to see it anyways. But for the next picks that do come through, Fafnir Vulcan for the Scarabs. Valkyries pick up Tyr for Aquarius over in the Soul Lane. So it does feel like this Atlas might be going over towards Benny in mid as the Guan Yu Cthulhu band away, and then a Wheelish on the opposite side for the Solar Scarabs, maybe thinking that Kirmi would try and pick up something to kind of match the pressure as to what Atlas and Tyr can bring with those knockups in the kit.
Yeah, I think the Solar Scarabs rightfully identify that Kirmi is probably just looking for a diver, someone that can hang with the Ymir and the Atlas, get in your face, get involved early on. A Wheelish would fit that archetype, but there are plenty of junglers that fit that archetype. I wouldn't mind seeing Kirmi go towards maybe even a Lancelot or just a standard warrior jungle, or maybe something like a Raven out of the jungle either. I mean, anything that could just bring fight early and establish pressure, I think, is what the Valkyries have got their eyes set on. Whereas the Solar Scarabs have got themselves a very interesting composition. Haven't talked about it just yet, but Fafnir has not really been in the top of the pick order as of recent. Hasn't really shown himself a whole lot. Still does Fafnir stuff, though. Has decent ability to initiate fights. The range stun, very good. The ability to transform to the dragon and really start blitzing some of these neutral objectives. It's not an ADC mid, but a Vulcan with a turret does just about as much as, you know, an ADC would with Coerce. Ishtar, one of the best ADCs at actually just shredding objectives, especially with the crit build. Shotgun Blast will only do it a little bit faster with Fafnir. And Fafnir, similarly, just very safe. The Valkyries were jumping on Hurry Wind a whole lot. Good luck doing that when he's got an Aegis built into the kit and 2 leaps. And the longest leap in the game.
Erlong Shen, band away is the final one for the Scarabs, and a Hachiman pickup. Now I was curious if we were going to see some Hachiman, because he did receive some buffs in this last patch. His first ability got a little bit of a scaling increase on the Eagle Eye shots, and then his banner now lasts 6 seconds at all levels. And that 6 seconds is a long time for that boosted attack speed, whether you're standing inside the banner or not. As the Hachiman, you get at least some benefit. The Scarabs will go with Hunbats. They were looking at Ardio, or they were looking at Kali Hades and immediately swapped over to Hunbats and Ardio. Do you like the change-up of those 2 picks for the Scarabs, going away from the Kali Hades that they had and now to this Hunbats Ardio for this composition?
I was hoping it wouldn't be Kali, so happy with that on its own. Between Ardio and Hades, Ardio's got some really strong counter matchups. Atlas, Tyr, Hachiman, all very reliant on their mobility. Ardio with the cripple field, very, very strong there. Even Hunbot's really strong matchup here. Tyr's passive being that you really can't CC him for extended periods of time. Doesn't matter. against Fear No Evil. So long as you are within range of that massive circle, it is constantly reapplying the fear state to you, which means that doesn't matter if you're DR'd out of control, doesn't matter if you can only be CC'd for 1 second, you're going to eat the full duration every single time, especially when you're up against a wall or something like that. So Hunbot's in the tier as a peel tool, I think a whole lot of value. And even as a setup tool for Vulcan, I like what the Solar Scarabs have got here, but it doesn't exactly scream to me early game. This is another draft from the Solar Scarab that is going to take a little bit of time to wind up, and depending on what this pick is for the Valkyries, we'll get a better idea of how they're trying to address it. But I have to imagine still, considering it is likely Atlas mid, you want something and then get aggressive early.
Will purify this land.
Tsukuyomi, you're talking about getting a diver. That's one that can definitely get to the back line very easily with that piercing moonlight.
Good into Vulcan.
Something that can at least go right up toe-to-toe up against what the Solar Scarabs are drafting. Now for this Atlas, assuming that this one is going to be going mid, we're not going to see any shenanigans with this one going into the jungler or anything like that. Do you think that Benny Q is going full glass cannon on this Atlas? Think he's building full power, no kind of defense to the name, no nonsense there, just going all damage all day?
I'm expecting a lot of damage, whether or not he gets some bruiser items or maybe like a helmet or maybe a dedicated defense item like Breastplate of Valor. I can't really make a definitive statement about that, especially considering the build we had just seen from Benny, not exactly being in line with the meta that is established early on in the 9.11 patch. So yeah, I think he is likely to go a bit more damage-centric, but there's some potential that he decides to be a little bit more of a facilitator and try and create space for the Tsukuyomi to do the bulk of it.
Now, with the Tsukuyomi kind of wrapping now, you're talking about wanting to get a diver for Kirimi, something to go to backline. You kind of talk about how it's good up against the Vulcan specifically. Is this Tsukuyomi on its own going to be able to do, maybe not by himself, obviously, but do you think the Tsukuyomi kind of rounds out maybe a little bit of what the Valkyries were missing to go up against the Scarabs draft?
I think it gives you better kill confirmation. That's the main thing this Tsukuyomi brings to this draft for me. Hachiman's okay for it with that ultimate, but in jungle fights, it's a little bit less likely. Because when I look at Ymir, I look at Atlas, I look at Tyr, I see a whole lot of displacement, I see a good amount of poke, a good amount of burst, but not exactly enough that you're going to actually finish off your kills. Tsukuyomi's that guy for you. Every single time, piercing moonlight into the back line, chase out a Hunbots who leapt away, or an Ishtar who dashed away, or a Vulcan who's hiding behind a wall. The only concern I have for Tsukuyomi is that Beads Aegis is back, which means Aegis can just invalidate your ultimate completely. Have you got enough threat on the Valkyries to force out those relics? Beads, for sure. You're forcing that pretty consistently. But that Aegis, it's going to be a little bit harder to get off of them.
Now, the area where the Solar Scarabs specifically struggled in the last game was the early game throughout, and it seems that they've made some adjustments to try and remedy that. Ishtar Fafnir feels like that's going to be a pretty easy dual lane to either control or at least not fall super far behind. Vulcan into Atlas feels like that should be a good matchup for the Vulcan there. And then Artio up against the Tyr could be a good one. Do the Solar Scarabs have what it takes to take us to a game number 3, or the Valkyries gonna push their lead and their chances to 6th? We'll find out in game number 2.
Oh, that's right. We'll find out right here. The Valkyries, again, it all starts now for them. The Scarabs, not a lot of hopes for them in terms of playoffs. A lot of hopes for them based on Sam's tweet as far as Worlds contention. We'll see if we can see any glimpses of that this set, or if they are Trelly as it was seemed in the tweet, looking for the long run. It's Goran Trelly again with Doug doing the 1s and 2s. And I'm excited to see what they have to offer.
Yeah.
I will admit, we were talking about picks and bans, and you said it's going to be Atlas mid.
Yeah.
And I said, don't say that. And what if it is like Tyr jungle? Because Tyr me sounds really cool.
Tyr me does sound cool.
And we didn't get it. We did get
We got the Batless instead.
Okay, Batless does sound kind of cool. But here's the question. If that was a skin, you know that they're just catless.
Yeah, of course.
Would Batless be
a bat?
A baseball skin, where his astrolabe is a giant baseball?
Right.
Or would Batless be a bat?
I would like it to be a bat, and he would just do some bad puns, like, I am the knight. Like, that's
Kelly wants him to be Batman, as it turns out.
Well, not exactly. I mean, I wasn't trying to open up lawsuit territory, but surely he could say, I am the knight. Like, that's allowed, right? That's not copyrighted.
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer.
I was going to say, I probably should look to you for legal advice, but
I don't know a lot of. My brother worked in legal for a little bit, so I'm like legal adjacent.
yeah, you just ask him, can Batless be the knight? Is that allowed? And then have him get back
As
to me.
long as you spell it Knight, I think you're solid.
All right.
Like
well,
he is the knight
yeah, okay.
in shining armor
yeah.
that shows up at nighttime.
Yeah, and the only way anyone would ever know that is if they put on SMITE subtitles or
Yeah,
something
exactly.
like that. But, you know, I heard we were talking about on the desk a bit about the Fafnir-Ymir matchup and how Fafnir's not too high on the tier list at the moment, but we had Hurrywin in studio, man. He was casting with us, and every time the Ymir pick came through, he said he likes to go Fafnir and get either Bracer or Sunder and just focus Ymir. Like just ult, double stun, try and kill the Ymir. And we've seen him do it twice now. Hasn't worked out either time, but maybe this will be the first time for something.
I mean, this is so far so good. The body block's not enough to stop it. Hurrywin with his counter matchup finds first blood against the Valkyries. 1 minute 40 in. You've got to feel really good about that one.
Yeah, that's the start you're looking for. Benny and Q, I was gonna say, is gonna get some pressure in mid, but at the moment, you know, your duo lane's going down. You should be just fine. No one else really got the benefits of that kill except for the duo lanes, Ahuri and Netroid, sitting just fine, but the rest of the team is also gonna be all right. Gamma, of course, still level 1, and I'm glad. I've been going on record to say I am. If anyone does the purple run at invade strat, I hope you get first blooded, and I'm gonna keep saying it until they stop. I don't care. At this point, Gamma walked up, and it wasn't. Let me be clear. It wasn't just the invade. He was then standing at the back of the wave, and was like, "Oh, look at me! I'm so unkillable," and he died. Sorry, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you.
No, yeah, definitely. The way originally I thought you were happy that Gamma
No.
died specifically. I like that it was then introduced to me as anybody that goes for the invade. That makes it a little less
And
targeted.
it's not even the purple buff invade. That's fine. I understand the value, and I understand slowing down the clear. It's what you do after the invade. Gamma was at Archers at level 1. Like, you have no other
yeah,
abilities.
you got to be punished for that.
You got one single ability. The tanks have been, you know, just riding the high of early Ymir HP for so long.
I don't know what they did. I guess a little bit of farm goes a long way. They were behind. I mean, it was levels 3 and 2 for Netroid and Hurry, turned into level 2 and 1 for Wowie and Gamma. Now they're equal. In fact, Gamma's ahead somehow after getting first blooded here. So whatever it is that the Scarabs either haven't been doing or that the Valkyries have been doing, they need to keep it up. Hurry is going to get a little aggressive here. Snoopy has made a rotation over. There's going to be a big ult, and it's going to land right on the support. Takes down a good chunk. They need a little bit of help. Gamma might just go down for the second time this game. Snoopy, credit on that one, and a great rotation from the mid lane.
That is a clutch rotation, because with the Interceptor, there is no way that he's getting out of that one. Wowie, with a good dash, should be just fine, but good autos from Netroid. He's going to put some poke over towards this Hachiman. And Benny Q is proxying the wave. Sam, he couldn't clear it himself. Surely he gets punished for this.
He's going to have to use his beads. Ult down from Sam. A couple of smacks, doing a lot, but Sam doesn't have a lot of mana. Hurry. He's going to rotate over. You've also now got the Atlas here. Tsukuyomi comes in. They're going to get the kill on to Sam there.
He didn't
so
get punished,
finally
boy.
finding something, and Benny does not get punished for his proxy farm ult that he had to drop in
Not
order
at
to
all.
get it done.
In fact, he lost his beads. If that was the punish,
That's
then
the punish.
then I suppose. But I would argue getting an assist and also getting the kill on a Sanford Soccer is rewarded. He was rewarded for proxy farming. And to be fair, that play is only possible because Snoopy made that rotation over to left lane. You know, left Benny Q by himself for a bit, and Hunbats has almost no 100 to 0 potential in the early, especially up against an Atlas. Like, even with no prot, Tier 2 Sorcerer Staff is going to give you enough HP with base prots from an Atlas that you're going to be living that ultimate every single time. I mean, Sanford Soccer just really didn't have any kill potential by himself, unfortunately. So Benny loses the beads, but the Valkyries get a bit of an answer back to the aggression from the Solar Scarabs.
Atlas mid was not something I was prepared to have to
Wasn't
come in
on the bingo sheet today.
Yeah, it was not something I was prepared for. I was thinking of all the glorious changes that opened up so many mages.
It also opened up Atlas.
And yeah, apparently it opened up Atlas. Well, that is, you know, speaking of the time that Hurrywin spent on the desk, one of the things I remember joking about him with is we went through like the things that Atlas was really good at. and kind of realize that if you build him Meiji, he's just a really, like, maybe he's not going to chunk you down the same way a Scylla could, or in this case, like a Vulcan could, or Raw did last game. But he's going to control the field and get a decent amount of damage out there pretty safely. And with Guardian scaling, feel pretty solid about it. We'll see if BennyQ can keep that going. Because when I start to look towards late game, the Atlas, I don't know what to think of a damage Atlas late, but I do know what to think of a Hunbats, of a Vulcan, and an Ishtar late game.
Yeah.
So it feels like the Scarabs definitely can still leverage this game.
I would say so. And since BennyQ's beads are down, I think has to watch the positioning a bit. Snoopy has been able to get a level lead in the mid lane so far, and I think it's just because BennyQ hasn't cleared that wave yet. But the Vulcan has been very mobile, you know, just going across the map whenever possible and trying to get as much farm as you can. I'm happy to see Snoopy on the Vulcan, though, a pick that we had highlighted he could possibly go to the second we heard that he was playing mid lane. He's going to be going into a game number 2 already, able to find a good gank for his team and set up that kill on the Gamma. And stacking up the Book of Thought, so I expect to see big things. Maybe putting a lot of weight on his shoulders, but hey, you got to find a win here if you're the Solar Scarabs, right? I know that confidence is something the Solar Scarabs have been lacking as of recent, so just being able to get a 2-1 lead in the early and build something off of it, definitely something they're happy about and should look to continue doing if they can keep finding that pressure. But with Sanford Soccer on the Hunbats, probably not looking to get too active until, you know, some relics are forced once again.
Yeah, keeping my eyes. I was trying to find the Hunbats on the mini-map. He's over there at the blue buff, so not aggressive. Pretty much in the least. Meanwhile, still watching Snoopy. One really good early rotation, but there's a lot of setup for that ult. And if beads were down on anybody, I think it'd be a lot easier. But everybody, save for Gamma, has theirs up on the side of the Valkyries. Still a lot of burst. And a very quick instant. Maybe not going to see a rotation like that one again for a little while. They've got a little over 1,000 gold in their favor for the Scarabs. Let's say 1,200. Yeah, that's sitting right around their favor. And it's a small opening, Trelly, but sometimes a small opening is all you need to be able to get your foot in the door, and that's really what I'm looking at this team for. Sam could be a massive player here. Big 3-man Fear No Evil. Ult gonna miss from Snoopy, though, and now it's gonna be the dive from Kirby, trying to chase him down, looking for the damage. Someone has got to grab him. BennyQ is gonna be able to get him with the pull. Hurry, jumps in, has the transformation. But not a lot of follow-up to work with. The Valkyries tie up the kills 2-2.
Yeah, not a great call to walk up to those mid cams really ever when Gamma's there. No Phantom Shell available. You're walking up, you're getting walled off. Beads forced immediately. And of course, with Kirby and BennyQ doing that amount of burst damage, your beads aren't going to save you anyway. So Snoopy falls down there. Some great damage from the trio in mid of Kirby, BennyQ, and Gamma, as well as getting the beads down from BennyQ with a good ultimate from Hurrywin. So opens up some team fight possibly later on. But losing the beads and the kill onto your mid laner, especially the one with the most amount of farm on the map currently, it's a little bit unfortunate. Since then, though, some of these players have climbed ahead. I mean, Scary D's gonna have a decent matchup into the tier, right? Like the RDO should just be able to cripple and walk away from tier whenever possible. I don't think that Kirmi's gonna be making any rotations over to solo anytime soon, but looking at the way Scary D's itemized may be a possibility for a kill. I mean, just the Pythags and the Conduit Gem, that's a pretty damage-oriented RDO as of now, so wouldn't be surprised if Kirmi tried to get aggressive towards that pick, but maybe a little skirmish in the jungle. Actually, Kirmi wants to brawl here.
Yeah, manages to hit exactly what you need onto Sam, but takes a lot of damage in the process. Luckily, Aquarius is there, and Aquarius is the saving grace. Helps kill off Sam, and now it's just disengaged. Snoopy with a deep ult, able to connect onto Aqua. Aqua shrugs it off. You hear me? Lucky to stay alive. In that one, they kill Sam. And now they're going to steal a Greater Scorpion before walking away.
Yeah, I would argue Kirmi's lucky he even got that kill as well as getting out. Only hit 2 of the ult charges.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it was blind, but you got to be hoping you hit at least, you follow the damage numbers and are able to land at least 2 or 3 of those because that would guarantee the kill. But Kirmi getting that kill was a saving grace as well as a living through that. I think just because of the way Scary D is itemized, you know, wasn't able to brawl in that fight and was not able to try and help out Sam for Soccer. So another kill goes the way of the Valkyries, but smart call here from the Scarabs. They're going to go for the pull. No Vulcan ultimate, and the rest of the Valks are here.
Yeah, wow, he walks up. Scarabs do secure it. It doesn't look like there's going to be much else for the Valkyries to do here. Great call from the Scarabs, as you said. Be able to walk forward, get themselves an objective, keep themselves just over that 1,000 gold mark. And maybe go for a little bit more. Benny Q's going to get dove on. There's the Fear No Evil. They're trying to lock him down, but he's still a Guardian and walks away so far. Jukes out. A lot of abilities there from Hurry, and now the tides are shifting as a wall comes up. The Valkyries want to push for a little more. Kiermy going in onto Snoopy. The ult's going to be at the feet. Does a decent amount of damage, but they're looking for a little more. Scary D dives in deep to get the kill onto Benny, but it's costing them the rest of their team. Kiermy low, but Hurry locked away. Scary D off onto the right. Netroid still not having rotated over. Slow's going to be helpful.
Here comes Scary D.
Yeah, I don't know that Kiermy's going to get out of this one easily.
Jukes the hammer and he's out.
He
Let's
has
see
to
it.
dodge. He's going for
he's going to kill himself.
the kill.
Yep, nice.
Gives an assist over to Hurry. But no kill gold. And Gamma, I don't know what was going on over there. But no health, no mana. He walks on out of there alive, and the Valkyries feel pretty solid about that fight despite losing the Fury.
All right, so if you were ever an Atlas mid doubter, that play alone's got to give you a little bit more weight to the pick. I mean, no beats down. Benny Q ate the full entirety of the Fear No Evil into a hammer stun from Hurrywin, into the ult after. It was not they could not find the kill, and that's just a Stone of Binding Warlock sash. Wowie is going to get a little bit of attention thrown to him, and a good aggression towards that purple buff, but is going to be just fine in the process. So Benny Q lives there, had no relics, and then unfortunately Sanford Soccer once again falling down, losing these trades. I mean, Kiermy on the Tsukuyomi is just doing so much damage, seems to have his number. The Solar Scarabs have had superior objective pressure. After that Fury, it looks like they're going to go for the Pyromancer. Benny Q's going back to base, so this will be an absolutely free Pyro here for the Scarabs as well.
Solid objective burn. We talked about it, but honestly, their team fight late game looks like it could be pretty solid. Right now, it's just survivability that is not going their way. Good dives from Kiermy onto the Vulcan specifically have been helpful. Netroid hasn't been rotating to a lot of fights. Neither is Wowie, but feels like the Ishtar maybe is going to make a difference for the Scarabs. As far as early games go, Trelly, for a team that like has had this roster for like 3 days, Scarabs are playing this very solidly. And it goes to show again, I mean, you had mentioned it, Snoopy on the Vulcan just makes sense. Obviously, Netroid is an accomplished player, been in the league for years now, successfully. Might even be able to find a little more in the duo lane, just shy of getting the solo kill there against Wowie. Kiermy's over here, Sam's over here. Neither of these junglers look like they're going to get anything done. Netroid's going to take a tower. The Scarabs are actually starting to surge forward with their team. In the left side jungle, not a lot to invade on, but the pressure is there.
Pressure is certainly there. Scary D looked like he was about to make the rotation over, but decided to get a little distracted in the mid lane. Level 14 on this RDO, so still certainly threatening to the carries. I'd say that Aquarius isn't also threatening, but he's still over in solo lane currently. Invading a blue buff, as it were. Not really too concerned because there's no neutral objectives on the map to fight over. I mean, Fire Giant Burn, not looking too solid for either one of these squads just yet. But because Netroid was winning that pressure over and left, so we have to hold that thought. Hurrywin's definitely got to go into the Draconic Transformation just to get out here, but should just de-transform, but maybe the Scarabs want to get aggressive with that ult?
There's going to be a Fear No Evil, forces the beads from Benny Q. Barely jukes out the ult there. In fact, now it's a Fearless on the Hurrywin. They're pulling the support right back into this. The de-transform not even able to come through. Just a clean pick for the Valkyries. Charlie, they're still 2,000 gold behind right now because the Scarabs have been controlling the macro on the map. They've been playing the gold better, the pyro better. So the kills might be double in favor of the Valkyries, but they haven't been able to get a lot after them.
Yeah, they haven't been able to translate that into the objective play just yet, and I imagine getting some more vision could be the call, you know, because when you show up to fights and win this handedly, you'd think that the same could be said about the objective burn, but because of the way the Scarabs have itemized, I think, you know, Hurrywin's got the Shoguns, they've got the Vulcan, they've got plenty of damage. They're just able to burn through these objectives so quickly. It's almost like the Valks don't even know it's happening or just are not set up for it. So Primal Fury spawns in here shortly, about 15 seconds. I want to see the Valks step up immediately and get some vision down because guess what? The Scarabs are already here. I mean, Hurrywin's here, Netroid stepping up on the left side of the map. It looks like Gamma and Benny Q are on the way, and Kiermy is a little bit late to the party. They're going to try and burn this, but once Gamma walks up, you'd think they'll turn their attention to him.
They turn their attention to him, but not a lot comes out of it. Benny over the wall is an ever-present threat. Now, I got to ask you, I mean, we had talked about it between sets, and for those of you who are interested, Mike had made a tweet about MiniQ's build in game number 1. And so I'm going to ask you, Trelly, what you think of his build so far in game number 2.
I don't hate this build at all. It's very hybrid. It focuses on penetration. Scary D does get to the back line here. Doesn't look like we're going to be able to talk too much about it because already the brawl is beginning.
Yeah, I guess we'll get to see what it is in action. Going to be just chunked so far. The Aegis buying a lot of time. The dash not going to get the distance necessary. Benny is somehow still alive. Scary D is going to be chasing him down. You have to think, yes, the Ardio is able to pick that one up, but Netroid has been picked up by Aquarius, brought back to the team, and taken down because of it. It is a bloodbath 1 for 2. Scary D's low, but not low enough. Able to stay alive. Sam jumps into the back line. The Scarabs are looking for the fight, and they're finding exactly what they want. Wowie knocked up, controlled down, and a 4v1 cannot turn this one around, and the Valks have a 4-man wipe. The Scarabs are able to turn around, start looking at the Fury, look at the objectives once more.
Don't count out Aquarius. He has the blink, and I see a lot of low health targets. He has to pick his targets well, though. Snoopy still has the Aegis, and he's just going to go for all of them.
And he's going to find 2 immediately. It's a kill onto Scary D. Now it's just whether or not he can stay alive. His abilities, he's waiting for the cooldown, but it's not going to be there. Stops the Fury in the process, but a long delayed deicide. And only picking up 1 more kill, 8-8. With a 5-kill swing there for the Scarabs. Might not be able to get the Fury, although that turret's still trying. They still lead now 5,000, almost 5,000 gold.
That's
Trelly.
a massive gold lead.
Huge lead.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to come back from that one. And again, the team fight was looking all Valkyries up until that point. Finally, we saw the grouping there from the Scarabs. I think Scary D goes massive with the teleport in behind, was able to CC a ton. Kirmi dies pretty early on as well, just gets a little bit focused out and had some juke shoes, but I think Sam Soccer actually living through a fight was also pretty massive. He was able to cycle his abilities pretty well. And Aquarius getting the 4-0 shutdown, super unfortunate. I think he sort of had to go in a situation like that, but you would have loved if he was able to live through that and keep that gold on his head. Scarabs will get the free Primal Fury. And it seems like the play has been focus out BennyQ, focus out this Atlas, and then just try and look for the fight after. Worked out pretty well last time. BennyQ lived on a sliver, but Scary D dove the backline, or actually was already in the backline, and was able to pick off that kill. And after that, the fight got easier. So are Scarabs. Get the Primal, and now they're on the Pyro.
Now, I know I had said at the end of last game that the Valkyries could go 3 if they wanted, as long as they still win the set. That's what matters maybe the most. Ideally, you lock this one up.
Yeah,
right?
I'd
Like
say
if you're the Valkyries here, you want, and I would almost say need the turnaround. 5,000 gold down. You're going to be showing presence around the Pyromancer. This fight could determine a lot. Scarabs are going to get the Pyro. Aquarius might get caught out. There's a Fear No Evil onto the tier. Not a lot of damage follow-up immediately, although they're going to find some. And now it's Aquarius going in. Good wall, and it blocks off 2. A great play for the Valkyries, is able to help pick up Netroid. Scary D is low health as well. Don't have the damage, the chase down necessary just yet. Snoopy, Sam, maybe on the chopping block. It seems like the Scarabs recognize the loss. They're going to go ahead and turn around and run 1 for the Pyro. And maybe set up for a fire if the Valkyries are feeling really confident.
Looks like they're going to run right past it, not feeling that confident. I think just because, look at Wowie's build. My man's got 3 items, and one of them's Odibo. That Fire Giant would not be getting shred through as quickly as if it were, say, Netroid on that objective, who's got double crit and Executioner. I think that's probably the better call. Let's hurry win. As if a wraparound. Scary D teleported to the back, though. It seems to be the Scarabs are trying to fight this, and Sam Soccer, his ultimate's not quite back up.
Immediately looking for Wowie. Scary D's definitely being a nuisance. Sam, as you said, no ult just yet. Blink's going to come off cooldown whenever he gets out of combat. So maybe just a wasted, well, quote-unquote wasted teleport. Stops him from pushing the tower, and maybe stops the Valkyries from gaining any sort of advantage. Keeps the gold lead about the same area, about 300 gold, I think now lower, technically, for the Scarabs, but boo-hoo. 300 is not really that big of a deal in the face of 5,000. The Valkyries holding on. They have yet to take a tower off the side of the Scarabs. They have yet to get themselves a neutral objective. Honestly, yet to do much other than find some kills.
Yeah, that has been the name of the game. Find some kills and ask questions later. Unfortunately, the questions are being asked.
Now.
Yeah, it is later. And the Piper has come to collect, and so far nothing has been going the way of the Valks except for that 1 pick. You got to make a stand here at the Fire Giant, though. I mean, the gold is so in favor of the Solar Scarabs. I got my eyes on Kirmi, though. He's been able to do some explosive damage. Doesn't have Aegis for another 50 seconds or so, but has been able to initiate these fights pretty well, especially if the Valks are the ones who want to get aggressive. With the fact that Snoopy has that burst ultimate, you have to think the Scarabs are feeling confident, at least around this Fire Giant, but doesn't look like they want to make the first pull. They're going to step up and just see what they can grab. Hurrywin was able to grab the Magi's bubble off Aquarius, and with that Draconic Transformation, he's going to start this Fire Giant pull, but lost his own bubble because of the Fire Giant knockup.
Always that awkward moment when you lose that. A little bit of utility, but they might not need it. There's a good chunk, good, decent ult from Snoopy. Unfortunately, Aegis there by BennyQ. Now it's a surge forward from the Valkyrie. Scary D is the first one taken down. Hurwin pushed back, and now with the D-Transform, you have to imagine the damage is going to be there. Yes, Wowie finds the autos. Kirmi dives deep, is looking for Snoopy Aquarius with a massive ult, goes forward. The damage is there from the Valkyries. They just need the CC, need to slow them down, but it's a 2-for-none trade. Low health bars around. You had mentioned it now. The chin side's finished for Wowie. Potential wiggle room. 20 seconds left until Hurrywin comes back. They need to rush, but if they can rush, they might be able to get an FG.
And I was thinking they could go for it, but Scarity's got teleport. They've missed the mark. If the Valk's play was to go for Fire Giant, that's all but gone. I guess the left side Trebuchet was able to grab a tier 1 tower and is now looking towards tier 2. So maybe the Valks see this as a bit of a stall. You lost both BennyQ's relics during that fight, and still is not upgraded to that Soul Reaver, so it seems to me the call is take that win and just get out. The Valhalla Valkyries are okay with getting a couple picks and continuing the fight after. Notably, Snoopy also lost both relics, and I think a bit easier to kill is this Vulcan as compared to the Atlas, at least for now. You have to commit blinks as well as a few ultimates to burn through this Atlas, whereas if Kirmi just finds Snoopy with no relics, could probably just burst him with that ultimate and the burst damage combo. But that Trebuchet is going to take the left side tier 2 as well. That's a ton of value for the Valks. It's going to help them climb back into this game gold-wise, as well as map state. It looks like the Scarabs are once again set up towards this Fire Giant. You'd hope that Hurrywin's able to hold on to the bubble this time, and Aquarius and Hurrywin just trade those Magi's bubbles.
Makes sense. I mean, given the amount of CC, works out well for them. Massive amount of value, though, on that Trebuchet. 5,000 gold chunked down to, let's just call it 3,000, right? It's a 2,700, but we'll round up depending on where these waves are at and where the farm is going to go. Scarabs definitely going to be feeling a little less powerful. Soul Reaver finish now for BennyQ. It's all about whether or not you can re-engage in time, but you've got this better secure if you're the Scarabs here, starting up the Fire Giant. And looking for the fight, there's going to be a two-man Fear No Evil. Immediate ult on the BennyQ, and no Aegis, no beads, nothing to work with. It is the delete button on the Atlas mid, and now with the numbers advantage, a move forward from the Scarabs. They're going to stun out Valkyries. They're going to chase them down. Scary D might have bit off more than he can chew, but it's just waiting for the team, separating them, bringing them together for them to slowly whittle them down. 2 for 1. The Valkyries forced to fall back. Aqua low. Does not have teleport, so he's going to have to come back the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, someone is going to have to deal with Kirmi, though. Looks like Sam taking a bit of damage in the process. Snoopy does not have that Earthshaker, so the confirmation could be a bit dodgy. Wowie and Kirmi have decided to step up, but they're getting poked down fast.
Harry leaps forward. Still has his bubble if necessary. Pyromancer favored over the Fire Giant here. They've got 10 seconds left on Benny and Gamma.
Yeah.
And so we'll see if they can get back. Cause some trouble. Scarabs aren't going to go for the Fire Giant. Never mind, change of pace. They've decided instead to go for the Fire Giant.
That's gone.
And they're going to burn it down. Yeah, with that ult as well. Clean pickup for them. While there's the Phoenix exposed for the Valkyries. 5,000 gold one more time. A Fire Giant on 4 of the 5 members. Scarabs are in a solid position this game.
They definitely are. I think I favor, as far as team fight goes, the Valkyries fight underneath the Phoenix much more than in the jungle. I mean, BennyQ was essentially forced to step up to try and get active in that fight, which means with no relics down, you still have to walk up into the Fear No Evil Earthshaker combo. Underneath the Phoenix, it's going to be a little bit different. Sam Prasaka really can't close gap as easy. He has to be blinking into the backline, and if he is that far with this build, could certainly be bursted through. So the Valkyries certainly not out of this yet. I think their fight gets a little bit better as long as they're able to group up underneath these Phoenix. The issue, though, is the lead is still climbing, as well as Hurrywin has been able to CC the frontliners of the Valks so well. Now with that bracer and the amount of shred that the Solar Scarabs have, these fights have been decided pretty quickly, right? It's not the long-winded, you know, sustained-driven fights. It's usually we get a pick, we get out, and then that's the lead you're looking for. So I think the Valks probably want to stay underneath that Phoenix, don't want to step up too far, especially not to a tier 2, but prove me wrong. It looks like they are going to walk up and defend this. And the Solar Scarabs are not going to walk up either. They're very split up. Right now, Sanford Soccer still in the mid lane.
Yeah, have to clear out some of these towers, right? Tier 1 and mid was the last Tier 1 for the Valkyries that was standing. So they're going to be able to knock that down. Maybe they could get some pressure onto Aquarius. Might not be the 2 fight that you want. Surprise, much like you, to see the Valkyries putting up as much of a fight as they are, but so far it's been successful in stalling. Sometimes when the power play is on the other side, that's all you can do is try to kill it as best you can through time and time alone. 2 minutes left for the Scarabs to try and knock down some of these towers, potentially go for a Phoenix. 27 minutes in. Fire Giant can help a lot with that one, but like you said, the defense is going to be strong. I am most excited at this point, maybe to see what can happen here. Massive chunk of damage onto Gamma. You have to think that's going to be a forfeit around that tier 2 from the Valkyries. But really what I was going to say is I'm really excited to see what the Sharks tweets are after this game. Always very, very vocal about his opinions on his team and what they were able to do. Win or loss, I think it's going to be a very entertaining read.
Yeah, it will be. Can't wait for those. But as as it stands, we can't wait for the siege either, because the Solar
we
Scarabs,
can. We have to.
Yeah, we're forced to. And it looks like Sanford Soccer decided to get away from Aquarius, and that was the call. Lawbringer down to try and chase through the Hun bats, but Sammy is able to grab 1 tier 2 tower. As of so far, still another 58 seconds or so on the Fire Giant. But remember, Snoopy walked up, got his beads down, traded some damage onto Gamma, and after that, the Scarabs did not feel confident walking in, did not feel confident trying to walk into these tier 2 towers. So, I mean, Vulcan's certainly a target here for the Valks. You got to imagine that the only one who can get to him really is Aquarius, and with the way Scary D's been playing, super annoying. Been walking up, CCing everyone, making sure to stop that blink whenever possible, keep Aquarius in combat. And now he's just sitting here in the back line, and Snoopy's nowhere to be seen.
And then you get giant ults like that from the Vulcan. And it helps keep things in favor of the Scarabs. They've got a Trebuchet. Fire Giant for 18 more seconds. Might not be able to get a Phoenix, but a second tier 2 is on the list. They get 1 in right, 1 in mid. So a nice little gold swing in their favor. 10,000, almost 11,000 gold when the Fire Giant dies here. Very solid swing for him. Trelly, no Fury to go to, no Pyro available right now. It's just going to be a classic reset. And now Vision Battle. As we start to approach a Fire Giant. By the time it spawns in, will be about 10 seconds, maybe 20 seconds from being enhanced. And you have to imagine that it's not going to get burned down instantly.
But what if it did? What if both teams came
Then
together?
I'm a little sad.
What if both teams came together, dropped the bracer, dropped the shoguns, everything, and said, let's burn this as quickly as possible, true 50-50.
Just so nobody gets an EFG.
Yep, and saying we don't want Enhanced Fire Giant. But, I mean, the Scarabs definitely show that they're able to fight in, right? They're able to walk up, get some relics, but they did not look towards the Phoenix in any way, shape, or form. And the Valks are actually going to step up here. They don't want to give up an EFG. They'd like to force something. Snoopy's beads back up. All relics, actually, on the left side of your map are available, whereas the Valks looking a little worse for wear. They're out of bracer for another 10 seconds, and Aquarius won't have anything for this fight unless they can stall out 50 seconds for that blink, and I think they should try, just because Aquarius has been pretty much the only engage. It's been wall into freeze, and if not that, sit back and hope the tier goes in. And that's been the play. And so far, it's been kind of working out. 12 to 10, right? Kills-wise, been just fine. Aquarius taking a lot of damage. We'll have to back up and resustain. And all it takes is a little bit of damage like that, and the Solar Scarabs are able to look towards this EFG. They've got the confirm, they've got the burn. All they needed was the space control, and they've got that now, too.
A little bit of control goes a long way. Aqua's still trying to get back up to full health. Benny Q now chunked down. Gamma taking about a fourth of his, let's call it a third of his HP. Herwind goes for the transform, a coerce this massive onto his team. There's going to be on the 2 that you needed on, plus, like you said, the relics and the damage, the burn. That's all they need to have the go button. BennyQ once again to lead it off the map. Aquarius tries to fight forward for his team, but it just costs him his life. Now, the run is on the Valkyries. Not much you can do with this amount of space. Kirmi and Wowie rightfully run away. Because if they die as well, it might as well just be game over. Enhanced Fire Giant going to the Scarabs. 31 minutes in, and it is a 5v2 with the 5 having the EFG.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we seen the same exact thing happen in a fight where it's pull Benny's beads, wait, Sam goes in, fear no evil, Earthshaker, dead. I mean, that time didn't even need the Earthshaker, but this Atlas cannot step up. I mean, there's just no way. Benny walks up and is immediately burned through the beads, and once the beads are down, a free kill. 2v5 with EFG. You got to imagine the Scarabs want to walk in here.
They're getting aggressive. They've got the damage, and they want to look for Kirmi. Is going to try their best to get rid of some of these carries, but like you said, Scary D has been a nuisance, and Scary D is going to continue going on with that. The Scarabs march forward, and with a resounding win in game number 2, tie up the set.
Oh, they tie up the set. I saw Hurry win. That was a big yes you saw him go for. He was happy to get that game number 1 win, and that's all it takes, right? The little bit of momentum, the seesaw, if you will, it's slowly tilting in favor of the Solar Scarabs. Could be off the back of just, you know, a couple different picks that could have been changed up there from the Valks, but a win's a win, and you got to imagine that the Scarabs are feeling pretty confident about that one.
I mean, you've got to think about it, right? If you're looking at this team and you're looking at what they have been, I mean, kind of expected to do, right? You come into this and you're told, okay, by the way, when you get to phase 3, you're going to get hit with more roster changes than I think a single team has seen, if not in a year, at least in a phase, guaranteed. And then on top of that, every time it happens, you immediately fall to the bottom of the expectations because you got to rebuild all this energy. You come in and get a win in the first set after something that massive, it's got to feel really solid for them.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure, much like we saw Hurry feeling, they're starting to feel a little more confident. The Valks may be shaking a little bit because they need this win if they want to make it to playoffs. We'll find out whether the Scarabs can upset the Valkyries or if the Valkyries can stay on track right after this.
And I would never hear. You've been flexing everywhere. Girl, look in the mirror. Man, you're so dirty. Yeah, you look so dirty. You were never worthy. Lately, it's you. You stole your piece, put it on me. But baby, it's you. Lie like a ride, but take your stuff back. Baby, it's you. Baby, it's you. If I control the weather, then every day it would rain on your parade. Shine, you can't shade, yeah. If I was Father Time, then I would change the day. So I never saw your face. Please. What do I have to do to make you go? Oh, baby, it's you. It's you. It's
attack, Valks the 6 is looking a little bit more difficult now with the Solar Scarabs taking game number 2 over the Valhalla Valkyries. And talking about some of these teams out there, and we've been talking about all the great stuff that's going to be at SWC, all of the things that's going to be going on towards SWC. But one thing that's going to be new that you can buy right now is the digital loot pack that includes our previous SWC champion, Atlantis Leviathan's Gilgamesh skin. That is now finally available for you guys to go out there, so make sure that you pick up your SWC digital loot pack on sale right now to get not just the great Gilgamesh skin, but the other 3 skins that you see along with that. I believe that's a Yamoja, Lancelot, and a Yu Huang skin, all available along with it. So make sure that you pick yours up today, so that way you can pick up all of these great skins available to you in the SWC digital loot pack. But Mifflin, Solar Scarabs, game number 2 just looked like kind of a complete flip of the script there. It wasn't quite as dominating as game number 1 had for the Valkyries out there, but the Solar Scarabs drafted a little bit of early pressure. They definitely got some of that early pressure, finding 2 early picks onto Gamma throughout the game. But when it came down to the team fights, it felt like the Valkyries were a little lost when it came to these Fire Giant dances.
I mean, who was closing gap, right? Who was able to get into that back line? Because once the late game team fight started to roll through, it looked like just the Snoopy show. Oh, you want to close gap onto me? Meatball, you're dead. Gamma gets hit by a Fafnir hammer and an Earth Shaker, and Gamma's like, well, sure wish my Earth didn't get shaken, because he's down to like 200 HP. It was just very, very difficult for the Valhalla Valkyries to find any avenue in to get onto the priority targets of the Solar Scarabs. Netroid allowed to free cast, and Snoopy allowed to free cast as well. And I think probably one of the priority reasons of it, well, one of the primary rather, is the Atlas mid. I'm sure the Valhalla Valkyries are thinking to themselves, man, we're so smart. We got the Ymir and the Atlas, both priority guardians. There's no way the Solar Scarabs are feeling good about that Ishtar lock-in. And then Atlas mid was like putting up like 400 damage in a team fight. Wasn't exactly able to get a whole lot accomplished. That's not to say that Atlas mid can't work. It certainly can. I've seen it work maybe exactly once this year. And it wasn't exactly the Valhalla Valkyries that made it work either. It took like some role swaps with the Jade Dragons, but if I'm the Valhalla Valkyries or if I'm their coach, I'm saying maybe let's get Benny back on something a little bit more standard.
Yeah. Felt like the amount of damage that Benny was doing, he could have done with any other mage from even further away throughout that one. 2 and 4 from him, 1-5 out of Gamma. But we're on the opposite end of there. Snoopy 5, 2, and 6 on the Vulcan. Priority pick for him, something that he's been playing pretty much since the beginning of his career. I mean, even before Snoopy was, jumping over into mid when he was playing in the dual lane, he was playing Vulcan ADC, just because why not? At some points it was good, at some points it wasn't, but hey, it's just a pick that he's very comfortable on, something that maybe the Valkyries consider banning just to keep him off a comfort pick for game 3.
And it wouldn't even just be a comfort pick ban. It's not like you're banning like Baronix Kukulkan, where he's the only guy playing that. Vulcan was good before the Beads Aegis ban. He was good during the Beads Aegis ban, and he's going to be good afterward as well. Let's just deal with the Vulcan, especially if Snoopy's going to look that good on it.
Yeah, Snoopy very clean in game number 2 on that pick. Again, putting up 5 kills for himself and astronomical amount of damage. I mean, when your Earthshaker is hitting mid-late game for about 1,100 or so on even some of the semi-tanky targets, imagine what's doing to the rest of your carries. We will be able to jump into picks and bans for game number 3, though. This is a moment where the Valkyries got to step back up and find their win over the Solar Scarabs. Otherwise, their road to 6 may just be ending right here with this very set. The Valkyries will be taking first pick this time around. First time this set, they've elected to take this position for the picks and bans. And immediately, they thought one of the big problems was Hunbats for Sam for Soccer. And I do have to agree, Sam was doing a pretty good job on this pick, especially keeping Benny Q out of these fights.
Yeah, it was really good at making sure that Benny wasn't able to get involved, or anytime Aqua was using Lawbringer to get into that back line, he usually landed into a Fear No Evil. So smart ban for the Valkyries, especially if they do want to go back towards something like that tier. I do prefer first pick for the Valks. I think they can just grab their Ishtar. It's pretty unlikely that the Solar Scarabs grab both priority guardians, so if you grab Ishtar in first slot, or if Ishtar's banned, whichever hunter strikes your fancy, should be able to lock down your support as well without revealing too much about your draft. Cupid Daji taken out now. Solar Scarabs with the Daji, Valkyries with the Cupid. Seems to me this could be a position where you just ban out Guardians as well. If the Solar Scarabs really don't like the option, assuming that the Valkyries will pick a hunter first slot, maybe we see an Atlas or a Ymir ban here.
And maybe force the hand of the Valkyries to pick that one up, otherwise it gets picked up on the opposite side of the board. Valkyrie's still waiting for their last ban. It will be Vulcan.
Smart.
So Hunbats and Vulcan, 2 of the big troublemakers in game number 2, now removed from the table for the Solar Scarabs. You know, being Osiris almost kind of feels a little bit of a throwaway ban in a sense. You know, the Osiris was pretty good in game number one.
Not good.
Not gonna say the Osiris is dominating in that sense, but maybe just taking something away from Kirmi, maybe not knowing what else to ban, or maybe even trying to hold a couple of picks for themselves.
Well, in the past, when Kirmi wanted to put out infinite pressure with an auto attacker, Erlong Shen was essentially the be-all, end-all of that conversation, and maybe not as strong as it was back then, back when Erlong had the knock-up and the HP shield and all that damage output, but still certainly one that I think the Valks can lean back on if they need pressure from their jungle. This is surprising, though. I was expecting Ishtar in that first slot. CERN instead, good AoE tool for the team fight with the Wild Hunt, very strong lane pressure, and the potential to flex. The Valkyries could send this CERN mid, grab something else for the duo lane. We've seen that a fair bit. I know that mid hunters have eaten a fair deal of nerfs in the most recent patch wave, but I'm not certain that those nerfs have really removed them from the meta.
And then that Ishtar that was thought to be the first pick for the Valkyries instead will be a second pick for the Solar Scarabs alongside the Atlas. So potential dual lane now rounded out for the Scarabs, though would be remiss if I didn't mention that Ishtar can obviously go mid. Snoopy, being a hunter player before he came into the SPL, could easily pick up this god. Wouldn't be surprised to see him get that hand. But Erlong Shen, just as you were saying for Kirmi, seems to be the pickup for the Valks.
As of now, not exactly a great target on map for Erlong Shen to run down. If you can get behind an Ishtar, that feels pretty good. Same with Atlas. Those are both dashes that are blockable, so Erlong with superior positioning might make it a little bit difficult for them to operate, but Erlong does not necessarily have any incredibly poor matchups out of the jungle. You're still going to be able to do Erlong Shen things. You can force fights in enemy jungle, walk at their back camps, use your mannequins, and just say, hey man, I deal more damage than any two of you put together, and really leverage that early pressure. I like Erlong Shen. I like Kirmi on this pick. It's one that he's had a whole lot of success on, but it is also a god and player combo that needs to get involved early. Erlong Shen's always been the feast or famine pick. Either you're dominating the early or you're having one of the most quiet performances possible and you became a late game initiation bot with a blink taunt. You don't want that for the Valks here, not with this type of composition. You need to see Kirmi get active early on.
Scarabs will ban away two things that gave them trouble in previous games. Raw, away from BennyQ. Tyr, now taken away from Aqua. And then Naja and Thor, so some bans specifically over towards Stanford Soccer in the jungle by the Valhalla Valkyries, taking away some potential early pressure with those two picks out there. So the Scarabs. Now this question of, do you wait on Stanford Soccer's pick until last, see what the entire draft has to behold for you, or do you pick up a pick for Sam now and leave Snoopy, or even potentially Netroid, depending where this Ishtar goes, to be that final pick? Do you have a preference on one of those two? Do you save your jungle for that final counter pick, or do you save your potential mid ADC for it?
It's always dependent on meta. I don't imagine there's any junglers out there that he's considering like, okay, there's this one pick that I could totally dominate the map with, but I gotta make sure they don't get this, that, or the other. But it seems like we will be waiting on the jungle pick anyway. I would have generally, probably in this position, go ahead and give your mid laner counter matchup, especially considering he's newer to the team, needs to be a little bit more comfortable. Discordia, I think, is pretty plug-and-play, though, for the most part. Standard leap, pretty decent CDR, self-peel, one of the best just self-peeling mages in the game with Strife, so if you are going to take your mage in that slot, I think Discordia fits it very well. Also has just really, really good synergy with, like, an Atlas. Pick someone up, drop a golden apple on him, he'll throw him at whoever you need him to go to, or Hades with the Pillars of Agony, locks down a couple, golden apple has some time to spread. This is interesting, though. The Agni has been a pick for the Valkyries that last time it got locked in, I was not afraid to say that I don't think that pick is very good at all. Since then, has seen a couple of buffs, itemization maybe favors him a little bit more so, and even in that pick last time where I said it wasn't good, they won pretty handily around Benny on this Agni. So the Valkyries find themselves not only a comfort pick, but ones that stock price is a bit on the rise.
Yeah, we get buffed Agni, buffed Discordia as well. She got a little bit of extra damage on her first ability. Just a slight base damage increase. Agni, as you were saying, base damage on his 2 and his ultimate all got a little bit of an increase there. And then Amaterasu to round out for the Valhalla Valkyries full draft. So we'll be seeing the Athena going over towards Gamma Erlong Shen in the jungle for Kirmi. Final pick for the Solar Scarabs now goes over to Sam for Soccer. Wondering what he might go over towards. We did see that Bastet also got a little bit of a buff in this last patch, got a little bit of extra scaling on her last serrated edge, notably also got a buff, something that we haven't seen too much out of the junglers out of recent, so maybe a pick. We have seen Sam go towards it a couple of times so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, Bastet has okay matchup into Agni, the Huntress of Bast, pretty decent at chasing down that dash. Even Amaterasu could struggle in that matchup a little bit, Erlong Shen as well. Very telegraphed when he decides to initiate, so Bastet can be a really good disruption tool for him, and then just, you know, bully the carries in the back line during some of these longer engagements. Not certain that I love what Bast would bring to this draft, though, for the Solar Scarabs. Looking at the Scarabs, you've got a little bit of capacity to burn beads, but not exactly the highest. It really does ride very heavily on your mage combo between Discordia and Hades. Pele doesn't exactly burn beads, but does take some of those 1v1s. Not early on, though. This is a matchup that is heavily favored to the Erlong Shen for at least the first 5 or 6 levels. But what Pele does bring is another great way to dive this Agni, a phenomenal initiation onto the CERN, or even if you want to, go in with a Blink, then save Volcanic Lightning to deal with some of these CC tools, the Taunt from Athena, or Erlong, or even the Wild Hunt from CERN as well. Pele very, very good in 1-for-1 trades, but the concern with Pele is you need to go into these fights at full HP, because if you're looking for the 1-for-1, you gotta make sure that you have the HP to deal with them. Agni is one of the best mages at poking. Throw out one Rainfire, reset it back. Just one might be enough to deal like, what, 20, 30% of Pele's HP. All of a sudden, she's not going to have as easy of a time getting into that backline. Won't seem nearly as appetizing for that Pele. I'm curious to see how this matchup starts to line up around the team fights, because it's going to be an interesting dichotomy of Pele hunting Agni and Agni trying to poke Pele the entire time.
So, at least for the Solar Scarabs in that regard, for Pele, you know, you mentioned how it's not a great matchup into Erlong Shen maybe early on. So is this kind of a composition, and does it kind of put Sam in a weird position of fighting away from the Erlong, basically wherever this Erlong is he doesn't want to be? Are you chasing after the Erlong Shen after he goes for a sweep-up kill? You know, what's kind of maybe the mindset of Sam in this kind of matchup?
I think it's pretty similar to game 1 in that Sam wants to get to level 5 before he's really getting involved. Doesn't exactly have super easy lanes to just roll through and gank. Maybe you could jump on the Athena early on, but besides that, not exactly the easiest lockdown for a Pele. So farm your own jungle, hit that power spike, generally around level 6 to level 8, where you're 1 or 2 items deep, and then you've got some of that instant blow-up potential. Otherwise, you will have to counter gank the Erlong. If you just ignore Erlong and he's bullying your lanes, you're failing as a jungler. You have to at least match some of those rotations. But as far as fighting in the jungle, Pele doesn't want to fight Erlong on her own. She needs some help.
Definitely will do so. And early game has kind of been the name of the game for both these two teams. You know, Valhalla Valkyries in game number 1 got off to a rip-roaring start at the very beginning. Solar Scarabs couldn't really catch up. Scarabs got to not so hot of a start in game number 2, but good enough to where they were able to hold things out. Either one of these compositions, at least for your money, Mifflin, kind of standing out as maybe a better gear towards the early.
Better in the early, probably just favoring the Valkyries here. They've got a highly aggressive duo lane with that CERN, the dash, you know, just a little bit extra burst, very strong, and I'm not going to bet against an Erlong in the early.
Well, we'll see if the newly revitalized Solar Scarabs can find their win in game number 3 and continue to take the set off of the Valkyries, or will the Valkyries bring this back and find their win? We got to jump into game at number 3 with Gore and Trelly one more time.
Yeah, we'll see what these teams have to offer again for the Valkyries. Their lives become a lot easier if they can win here. Trelly, if they lose this set, then it becomes a must-win against the Dragons tomorrow and a must-win against the Bolts on Sunday, with the Bolts having to lose some sets in order to make it. Otherwise, they give themselves a little leeway if they can win here. And for some reason, this matchup has just been the Valkyries' kryptonite. Not unbeatable for the Scarabs, but the Scarabs, more often than not, have been able to come out on top of the Valkyries last year and this year. We'll see if maybe they can keep that one going despite all of the changes that keep happening at them.
That is the question. And we'll have to see exactly how it will shake out here. I do like that the Valks have went for a more early game slanted composition, at least in the form of, hear me on this Erlong Shen. It's going to help you out. You're going to be able to get active, but a little bit of a different change up here. Gamma solos the green buff, and Wowie ends up soloing the purple and gets to lane first. So you're going to be missing a bit of XP, but I guess the idea is you get to lane earlier on. To see how that affects their team fight, but Metroid and Hurrywin certainly are getting the clear advantage, even though Wowie started here. So not going to get pressure in lane off that start. Either way, though, I like the itemization as well. I think BennyQ is going to go for the Conduit Gem into the newly buffed Chronos Pendant. We'll see how it works out for him. Stacking up those Agni Bombs early on could help you out with some DPS.
And it feels good. Again, matchups that I'm really excited for throughout the entirety of this weekend might include this lane. The damage onto Sam so close, but not quite enough to get the kill early for the Valkyries, which you've got to expect. Specifically, some of the changes we were talking about, mages back in mid was the focus for the most recent update. So far, it seems to be treating that pretty well, save for the Alice overall. And of course, the buffs, as the desk had mentioned, as you had mentioned right now, to the Agni, seem to make the mid lane feel really solid. Now it's going to be taunts and damage in the duo lane. Hurwin trying to stay alive.
Wow.
But that's a Mannequin Scepter, Erlong Shen, and he's going to be feeling really solid about that. First blood to the jungler for the Valkyries.
Yeah, great pin, saving it for that kinetic charge there from Hurwin, as well as I thought Netroid might have been able to close gap there with that Jolt and just get Hurwin enough space to retreat, but was not the call. In first blood going over to this Erlong Shen, and if you gave me just these 10 picks and said who's getting first blood, I'm saying Erlong Shen's probably got a good chance, right?
Yeah,
with the
like
Mannequin Scepter.
98%,
Yeah,
if
with
not
the
higher.
blink. He's definitely involved in it. He's either getting the first blood or getting first blood because he dove too hard trying to kill. So good on Kiermi for getting to make sure that kill goes through, as well as netting 2 assists over to Gamma and Wowie. That is going to start to add up, but because you got your jungler on the left side of the map, that means Sam for Soccer gets free ran over the right, able to invade that blue buff and put Aquarius a little bit behind. With this Amaterasu going teleport, wouldn't be surprised if Sam hangs around here. Once that dazzling offensive goes down, you certainly have some decent gank opportunities with the Pillars of Agony and, of course, the Volcanic Lightning there for Sam for Soccer.
And it is very, very specifically Pillars of Agony, not Agni.
No, Agni's the mid laner.
Yeah, he's going to be hanging out. He's bringing a different kind of pillars. Meteors dropped on top of each other. I'm really, really intrigued by some of the mid lane shakeups. And just what the most recent patch could potentially do. For those matchups, as well as what we're going to see in the duo lane, right? Because we had mentioned it, like AMC kind of falls off with the Beads Aegis thing for the last couple of weeks, and all of a sudden gets hit with some massive nerfs as well, so even though he could come back, maybe isn't as prominent. That ult is still really nice, but the rest of it, maybe not as much. We still have a long weekend to go, right? 2 more sets today, 2 on Friday and Saturday each. And then another triple header on Sunday. Snoopy taunted in. Gonna throw out the apple, get some damage onto Gamma, but uses the beads and does his best to stay alive.
Uses the beads and the apple there, so maybe opens up some opportunities for Kiermi. We'll have the blink and the 9 turns blessing up once level 5 comes through. Sam for Soccer already having access to that, though, does make this Pele a bit more scary for the time being. Just because Kiermi was able to get that first blood does not mean the XP is sitting in his favor, and his jungle has all been invaded as well, so he's not hitting level 5 anytime soon. He will be able to, finally, getting off those back harpies, so maybe towards the solo lane. You can see both junglers hovering by. Is it the blue buff or the fight thereafter? Could be a little both.
Sam seemed to be looking for the blue buff. Kiermi as well, looking for confirmation more than a fight. But you have to imagine, I mean, Hades this early on, not a lot of items to his name, even though Amaterasu might not do like bonkers damage. Between that and an Erlong Shen, could have potentially been a gank. With the dash up, the ult there, always creates some problems for the Valkyries if they want to get aggressive. Mid maybe seems to be the easiest one. Of course, the Ishtar on the other side, we originally had talked about Ishtar maybe being susceptible to ganks just because their dash is easily predictable, but so far, at least this set, Netroid and Wowie have been almost unmentioned until team fights. Like, until we're like 14, 15 minutes in, they're just kind of hanging out on left, except for the first blood scenario that we saw last game.
Yeah, it's actually really difficult to find a kill onto Ishtar in lane as long as you hold onto that ultimate, because most junglers want to start Blink. They don't want to have that beads for the CC immunity and the cripple immunity, that sort of thing. They don't love that. As a Greater Scorpion invade comes through, the Valks want it, and they are going to be able to get it, but what about the fight after the fact?
Sam looking for a little more, has the chase down for Kiermi, but it's not going to be enough thanks to the Athena ult giving those mitigations one more time. Gamma saves someone on his team, but it might cost a little extra. Stuns are good from the Agni. The peel from Benny is enough to get Aquarius out of there as well. And the Valks, they get a little aggressive. They manage to walk away from the fight and go Scorpion for Scorpion, despite the Scarabs having a very, very powerful counterpunch.
They really said, if I can't have enhanced buffs, no one can. And it just, if they both traded. And when you steal it, you don't get the enhanced buff. So neither team gets the cool upgraded buffs. And that's just unfortunate, you know? You're glad that the fight comes through, but you don't get the benefits of those buffs. I think another thing to note was the apple actually went through onto Gamma and then was transferred to Kirmi because Gamma ulted to Kirmi, so they both got spread by the apple. Snoopy probably pretty happy about that one. Going with the Warlock Sash, so not doing too much damage, but it will start to add up. Snoopy does have his own passive because of that play, having top damage in the game. So maybe next time that apple will do a little bit more.
Next time, though. And, well, maybe next time it won't be hand-delivered by Gamma.
It could be.
But it still could be. You never know. Unfortunate for BennyQ. I think the biggest loss really out of that fight is going to be his beads, another 100 seconds.
Yep.
So you got to wait for the Agni to feel quote-unquote safe. This is in days of yore. In the event none of you have played for the last, like, 5, 6, maybe 7 years. Agni's dash does not have that CC immunity. Do you remember when they went through and removed all that? It was
I do.
Simultaneously the best thing, but also made me really sad because it was always really fun to dodge out an Ares pull from his ult.
I just remember I've been seeing a lot on Twitter the old Aegis, the one that made you stand still, but you were also CC immune. Every god had a custom animation for when they did that, like they were stuck in the Aegis. You know, they all had like a different one. So now there's just a bunch of unused like idle animations for these gods where they're just like doing a little pose. Yeah, they strike a pose, they're immune, and they were CC immune. So you could actually Aegis the Ares ult and just like stand still and be like, I'm cool. But the pose, that's what I miss, you know? I just want to
miss the pose. You want to be a fashionista. You want to see him out there on the catwalk.
Exactly. I just want to see, you know, what they all look like now because there's so many gods that have never even seen that, and you got to imagine that pose exists somewhere, but maybe not. Maybe they stopped making the pose.
Stop making them pose.
Yeah, like Maui for example. I don't think he's got like a little pose.
Just a pose.
Yeah, but he should, and I want to see it.
Man, now that you've mentioned Maui, I cannot wait until he is available in competitive play.
The cinematics of that ultimate.
It's just going to be so fun to watch, right?
Yep.
The pulls as well. I mean, like the play potential is going to be there. Also likely that he just gets banned a whole ton. And then everyone makes aggro sad because he doesn't get to see his god out there.
Yeah, I know that whenever like Yu Huang or Ishtar gets locked, Lermy's pogging in the chat and she just roots for that team.
I think that there's a good chance Lermy might not watch sometimes until she knows that there's an Ishtar or Yu Huang in the game.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was some sort of alert that just goes off whenever Yu Huang or Ishtar gets picked. She's like, oh, all right, tune in real quick then. So as of right now, she's a Scarabs fan, but because everyone's picking Ishtar right now, you can bounce back and forth. Point is,
everybody wins.
Who knows if aggro's going to get that
feeling?
That feeling, yeah. Because so far, I mean,
so
hasn't
far
been allowed
the
yet.
answer's no. Yeah. We'll see if maybe they can get some exciting feelings going for the Valkyries. A gank onto her when they're burning through this Atlas. And it might take 3 of them and 3 ults, but they get there and they get the kill. Now they're going to turn into a purple invade. Metroid can't do too much other than watch this one go down. Still tries. With this amount of pressure over on left, maybe an early Furies in the call
There it is.
for the Valkyries.
Yeah, they've got the damage for it. Kirmi burning through and barring no, there's nothing. I was going to say barring like a cross the map ultimate from Hurricane, but he already used it. So that's going to be a free Fury off the back of the aggression from Kirmi. We've seen him go in for kills twice now. I mean, I guess 3 if you count the Scorpion.
I'm going to be honest, I did not realize that was the Agni that walked up for a second there, and I saw the meteor
You
come
thought it
down,
got stolen?
and I was so like, my heart, like, skipped a beat. So certain that the Scarabs had somehow found a way to make it happen.
Yeah, I scoured the map. I'm bad at my job, but not that bad. Where I just clearly see someone walking. Like this time, BennyQ's walking up, and he's got a decent steal attempt, and that's enough to make sure that the Scarabs are not going to go for that Pyromancer. So good map play as well as objective play on the side of the Valks. They're going to grab that Fury on left and make sure that the shutdown goes over to that Pyromancer on right. No objectives go down without the Valks stepping up at least.
Yeah, 1,400 gold. Not a bad lead for them to hover around, especially for building blocks. Pyromancer available And as we just pointed out, very easily thwarted by the Valkyries. So the Scarabs not able to claim that means the Valkyries could be in an easy position to do exactly what they're doing, right? 4 of them just walk up. And with the Scarabs having just back to base, and those that aren't in base currently are on the left-hand side of the map.
There it is.
Becomes a very easy pickup. Nice little tick of damage onto Kiermi.
Massive.
For Heroin. But it might end up kind of turning around. A lot of damage from Benny Q. You had called for the Chrono Spin in earlier with the Charon's coin as well. And so far, this Agni has been definitely something to talk about. Look, the triple goose egg in the KDA, maybe not the most popping off as we've seen. And honestly, in player damage, it's 4th at the top. There's not been a lot of fighting, but the fighting that's happened feels like Benny has been a huge part of it. Now we'll see if maybe that's going to make a big difference with rotations coming through. 4v3 around the purple buff. Valkyries steal it away from the Scarabs. Couple of ults thrown out. It seems like the Valkyries get to walk away happily.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, the fights are only happening around Kiermi. I mean, 2 kills total, both in favor of Kiermi. And I guess 2 assists over to Wowie, 2 assists over to Gamma. So duo lane-centric Erlong Shen fights. That's what the game has been dictated by so far. So wherever that Erlong Shen goes, maybe there's going to be some fight action. Scary D could have been looked at here, but looks like that's not going to be the call. Finally, the other jungler gets activated, Sam.
Yeah, but there's a taunt. 9 turns blessing from Kiermi looking for the Pele, but the pull, the CC from Heroin is disruptive at worst, and now it is locking him down. Pillar of Agony is all they need. Scary D gets through Kiermi, and it's a 2-for-none trade, evening up the kills for the Scarabs.
Yeah, Sam for Soccer finally decided to use that blink that he picked up at level 1 and got active onto Benny Q, and Kiermi, thinking he could maybe help out, was very much punished by the rotation in from Scary D and the well-timed ult from the team. So good plays all around. And it looks like Solar Scarabs are going to try and close up some of that objective play that the Valks are going for. They aren't able to get anything yet because both neutral objectives are down. Primal Fury won't be up for a bit, as well as that Pyromancer down. But 2 kills, answering back the 2 that the Valks already had. Got to be a good start, right? You got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I like that the Scarabs weren't just going to sit by and let the Valks run the early game. Just because Erlong Shen with Mannequin Scepter is in the game doesn't mean that Pele can't also get active, especially onto an Agni. Getting those beads down could open Benny Q up to some more ganks, so probably staying back for at least the next 100 seconds or so.
Now, it does open up a question similar to game number 1, right? When we watched the Valkyries, the Scarabs were playing against a team that later on was just going to be solid in team fights, right? You had a Mercury, you had late game hyper carries, things like that. And so they countered it with early aggression, made sure they got a lead and maintained it and kind of turned it into a lot. They also just stopped the Scarabs from hitting that late game team fight. I might have to hold that thought right now. Scary D, yeah, it's going to be a pretty easy pickup for Aquarius and Kiermi on the right. And so with kills like that, it does maybe make this question even more important. But in the 5-on-5, who's got the advantage?
I think that depends a lot on who's initiating these fights. I think ease of initiation definitely goes over the Valks because they've got this linear engage with 2 taunts, right? And Kiermi could blink in 9 turns blessing, or Gamma dash taunt in, much like he's trying to do on the Hurrywin. That sort of engage is always going to be there. But it looks like, wow, he actually gets the worst of that trade, so probably going to have to run away. The Valks are looking for some aggression onto that Atlas, but Hurrywin has shown that he's not going to be the easy pick that he used to be. He's got that Spirit Robe, he's got that Gauntlet of Thieves fully stacked. Not going to be that easy to shred through anymore. But the Solar Scarabs are set up towards this Fury that's spawning in now. And it looks like Scary D has left solo lane, so maybe some aggression towards that objective. But I think ease of engage is the call, and it looks like the Scarabs don't have that easy taunt that they're looking for. They're going to have to find something, though, because the Valks are already pulling this Fury.
Yeah, starting it up, burning it down so quickly. Wow, not even a chance to reply. Almost stolen away by the Scarabs. But not too much you can say about it. Kiermi blinks away from the fight, deeper into the backline, but has to be careful. Gamma's low. Defender of Olympus, not able to get him out of there. It's going to be the disengage. Kiermi, whew, barely able to survive that one, but
Calculated.
1 for Fury. A tale as old as time, a trade that is often used in SMITE, and Valkyries are going to be still up in gold. Maybe in a dangerous position. Aqua trying to defend this tier 1. Maybe at this point just trying to stay alive. Not going to be successful in either of those. Tower goes down. Aqua loses his life. With the Pyro coming up, this could be a good swing for the Scarabs onto the right-hand side of the map.
Yeah, Aqua's crazy for dashing in there. I understand you had the beads, but you got to be dashing out or at least channeling that dazzling offensive. A little bit too little too late, and good dash in from Scary D, able to make sure that Aqua goes down. Now it's 4-3 in favor of the Scarabs with that gold lead. Was about 3K, now looking at about 1,700 or so. Closing up, but still certainly in favor of the Valks for the time being. But as I was trying to say earlier, I mean, you know, the in-gauge, if the Valks are able to just fight strictly off of their taunt and their CC, it looks fine. But so far, that hasn't been the case. I mean, Scary D has been able to get to the back line with this, you know, the Pillars of Agony from the Hades. And now, the Pyromancers started up, and no one from the Valks can even step up. Good zoning from Snoopy, pushes away BennyQ. And the first neutral objective of the Scarabs is going to be the Pyromancer, 16 minutes in.
Now, the Valkyries, again, looking the grand scheme here. They lose this set. And based on the way the Scarabs are playing right now, it's 50-50 in game number 3. And they have to hope that the Bolts lose later today. They have to beat the Dragons while they have to hope the Bolts lose to them. And then still beat the Bolts on Sunday. A lot of very specific scenarios for them, but it's not necessarily the end of the road. Unless the Bolts get a win later today and then make it mathematically impossible. So a lot of pressure on them to make this game work if that Valks 6th hashtag is ever going to come true. Yeah? I'm just giggling at it?
I don't understand why, but now I see why, because the aggression's still coming. BennyQ decides to go in.
And that is not fruitful for anybody. It uses the Athena ult, Gamma. No longer has the Defender of Olympus. BennyQ died. Does not use the Aegis. Did not have the beads.
It just seems so unwarranted, you know?
Yeah.
It was clear he was trying to set up for, like, okay, let's force Benny's dash, and then we can, like, chase him down. But Gamma's like, oh, you went for me? That's odd. And then, oh, everyone's here. That's why they decided to get aggressive. BennyQ's Rux will be back up, and he spawns in 20 seconds. In that time, though, the Scarabs are trying to pull this Fire Giant.
Yeah, and it just makes sense. You've got a 5v4 Pele as well to be able to jump onto Wowie or Kirmi. You had said early on you don't want to take those 1v1s if you're a Pele. That was mentioned on the desk as well. But later on, it might not even be the 1v1 that ends up getting taken. They just need a zone and some confidence. BennyQ's respawned, so he's going to be leaving the base. If the Scarabs are going to try to do this, they need to do it now. And it seems like they recognize that that is still a risky option for them. So instead, they fall back and are going to give the Valkyries a little bit of space to recoup. And so now BennyQ, despite the dash into the fight and the death, now sitting at 0-2 and 0, has both relics, stronger build theoretically to come back into this fight with. And nothing to worry about on the map for another minute outside of this Fire Giant.
I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent here and say that I am not a big fan of the way that Sanford Soccer is itemized here. I mean, I love the sledge. You know, that's all well and good, but going the sledge into Magi's essentially makes sure that you are not matching the damage of Kirmi, right? You go 2 hybrid survivability style items in a row. This Pele is going to be hitting, but not like she's supposed to. You know, this isn't the Erendite and the Crusher, the Brawlers, the full damage burst that we're used to seeing from Pele. I imagine when Sanford Soccer gets to the back line, he's going to expect a little bit more burst or going to need some more follow-up from the team. Not going to be bad. Surviving is certainly a strength, but we're going to have to see it now, as it looks like Gamma's going in, trying to find the taunt on a Hurry when he's getting chunked through.
Yeah, found it, they did. Hurry, burned down by Wowie, but Wowie takes a lot of damage in the process. The apple is going to detonate, and it's going to be 1-for-1 support for the carry. They need more if you're the Valkyries, or else this trade is just not worthwhile. Damage from Benny, unfortunately not finding enough. Instead, Netroid stepping up for the team. Aqua, Gamma, low, Kirmi isolated. It's just the chase down from the Scarabs. The Valkyries falling apart when it matters, and the Scarabs standing tall after the fight.
Yeah, Netroid goes massive with that ultimate. It looks like Kirmi and Aqua are going to have to retreat in this situation. The Solar Scarabs, though, not looking towards that Fire Giant. Looks like they're not feeling confident enough with Hurrywin dead and with Snoopy over in base. They're going to heal up a bit. Scary D is going to be just fine healing up the squad. And now it looks like the pull is going to start. Netroid going to be the first one. And Aquarius is close by, but not close enough to make the steal. So the first Fire Giant of the game looks like going to the Solar Scarabs for absolute free. All 5 members going to be able to grab it here. No one wants to steal it. So Solar Scarabs, 20 minutes in, are going to finally give themselves that gold lead they've been looking for, as well as set themselves up for the Fire Giant. Where do they go from here? It looks like the right side of the map is going to be the call. Tier 1 tower going to be looked at first, whereas the Valks, they're on the left. Gold Fury's still available. They've got time to pull it. They have to know that all of the Scarabs are on the right side of the map for the time being, so Gold, push up some waves and set up for that Phoenix defense should be the call here.
Gold Fury is going to be done to counteract a little bit of this, but that's a Tier 2 tower easily slaughtered by the Scarabs. It's going to be a polite reset from the Scarabs as well. Fall back, spend some of that gold, find small upgrades, honestly, not a lot of gold in hand. Oh, well, for most people, Scary D is sitting on 3,000, so I assume this is going to be a very, very lucrative back for him. Polynomicon, full bot. And so a strong resurgence for the Scarabs here. Double the amount of kills of the Valkyries, stronger team fights, and a Fire Giant on all 5 still. 3 towers left standing for the Valkyries. So some wiggle room for the Scarabs to take a small, small lead that they have now and really swing it into something massive.
Yeah, taking a look at the relics. You can see that Snoopy's got nothing for another 35 seconds, so probably wants to stay away from fighting for the time being. Just take the uncontested farm, in this case the Pyromancer, and as long as you're staying S5, and Snoopy stays deep in the backline, shouldn't be the biggest issue. But besides that, you can see Aquarius and Kiermi don't have beads for about 25 seconds respectively, and Wowie's got nothing as well. So both of these teams probably okay with stalling this one out, you know, just waiting a bit. I think with the way that the Valks have played the early game, they built up a cushion for themselves that even though the Scarabs got that Fire Giant, the gold is not looking out of hand at all, right? Yeah. It's only about 2,000. You can certainly fight back into that, I think. The way that this team is itemized, the Valks still have plenty of power spikes they have hit. Kin size over the board for Kiermi. The Soul Gem got finished for Benny Q, and wow, we got that Silver Branch. So plenty of damage and plenty of defense potential here for the Valhalla Valkyries. It's just dashing in, the taunt from Gamma into the Sunder, on to Hurrywin. That's been the call. I think you gotta look towards the carries now instead of trying to shred through these tanks, because the Solar Scarabs, they've got damage, for sure.
So whether or not the engage is going to be on their side, you had mentioned it earlier, the Valkyries, 2 taunts make things a little more simplified for them. Relics are back up for Snoopy. I see a very clustered team. One good apple could cause a lot of damage for the Valkyries. Minion waves going to collide here, easily cleared by the Scarabs. Backdoor protections will disappear. CRD's going to go in, goes immediately for the detonate damage. Only finds a little bit of it. Gets some good chunks. A nice 2-man taunt from Gamma. They're trying to find the fight.
Huge
Aquarius
apple.
goes into the back, but the apple, it's doing too much damage. Miniq is just gone from the game. Aquarius tried to get something going in the back, but had no assistance. The zone too strong. Now the tier 2 will go down. And with a numbers advantage, there's a Trebuchet over here. Chelly, this Phoenix, it feels a little awkward even with 35 seconds left on the power play.
Yeah, you gotta be upset about that one, because I feel like Benny Q definitely survives if he doesn't get chunked by the apple and the ultimate from Hurrywin there. And Netroid got credit for that kill. And now it looks like the siege is going to continue, and Scary D blinks in, gets the beads down early. Great play. He's able to get out and keep forcing the fight towards this mid-tier 2. It's going down quickly. No more defense from the Valhalla Valkyries. They're going to let that go as well. And it looks like that's going to be it. 7 seconds left on Fire Giant. Falls off here soon. The Solar Scarabs happy with just pushing their lead a little bit. And I talked about Sam Versakker's build. Still has not gotten damage online, but still hasn't had to, right? He hasn't really been a part of these team fights, being the 100-0 style of play in the backline. During that Fire Giant fight, he pretty much burned through Gamma a bit, and that was it. Now, he's got plenty of gold in pocket, should be able to finish that Erendite as well as work on upgraded starter items. It won't even matter at this point. He'll have hit 2 massive power spikes before he's even needed to use this Pele damage towards the backline. So surviving through the fight seemed to be the right call. Great apple there from Snoopy as well. I think the Solar Scarabs feeling much more confident going into this next Fire Giant that'll be up in about 30 seconds.
You've got, I mean, confidence at this point. Almost necessary for, I think, both of these squads. But you have to imagine surging for the Scarabs, right? I mean, you know, a team just like constantly going through surgery, and most of it not necessarily prompted by them, is getting done at them. Players leaving for what they seem to think are going to be greener pastures, and for some it has been. We'll see how well that continues. So now, maybe this Frankenstein's monster of a team that has been put together can coalesce into something that is just as powerful as maybe necessary. Playing upset here for the Valkyries. Potentially Scary D. It's a little bit of poke. Fire Giant is going to be the next topic of conversation, Trelly. And depending on how long this lasts, I mean, we're 4 minutes out from Enhanced. You have to imagine it'll get taken down before then, but all it takes is a misstep, a missed taunt as well from the Valkyries. We're back into the conversation of maybe the Valkyries back into this.
You gotta make sure that you got your eyes on Scary D, because last time he was the engage, right? The blink into silence, the detonate damage, and then dash out. Try and grab the beads. If Benny Q's on point, he'll probably just turn and dash before that comes through, but I'm thinking Scary D still needs to be kept in combat. Aquarius picked up, forced the beads early on, and now you just gotta watch where the engage comes next.
Yeah, good scoop from Herwind. And then an apple as well, touching on the Gamma. Maybe not the most massive amount of damage, but still getting something out of there for Snoopy. Scary D's taking a little poke on the right-hand side. Has this build we've seen time and time again. A lot of lifesteal, a lot of survivability, but can still be bursted through, especially with a build like Wowie, or the damage that we've seen out of Benny Q so far. Have to play it carefully if you're the Scarabs. Be careful they will be. Pyromancer's up, maybe a lot easier to go for. They're going to start a little bit of DPS on the Fire Giant, though. Call the Valkyries out. See if they can get something. No pickup from Herwin. Instead, he's taking a lot of damage in the process, and that might be the opening the Valkyries need. Benny Q moves forward, but now finally able to find something. Is he too deep? Snoopy's getting burned. They might be able to turn 2 around. Might be able to turn more around with Netroid joining the fight one more time. 4 already gone on the Valkyries. Let's call it the Deicide triple kill for Sam for Soccer, and they're going to run down mid. They've got the minions, and they've got 20 seconds without a single Valkyries member available. The Scarabs are going to take the changes that have come to their roster and win the first set this time as they run down mid and win game number 3.
This one is going to take a bit to end, but I think they definitely have the damage for it. Gamma's up in 8 seconds. Sam is weak. Scary D's got to tank this with minions coming soon. I think they've got it, though. They've got plenty of damage with the shotgun autos.
And with confidence, they're going to stand here. Gamma doing whatever he can. Low health bars, but not low enough. You have to imagine that feels insane. Yeah, you can see it.
I can see it on Hurry's face. He is hyped. I mean, he got hyped after winning game 1, and you got to imagine putting it away in game number 2. Well played by the Scarabs as well. This was not a fluke victory. They were a little bit behind kills-wise, but the objective play was always on point, and they were able to make sure that those Fire Giants go their way, and that's exactly where it counts.
Whatever the shot calls have been for this team, whatever they decided to kind of pick up for that, it has felt really good over the last couple of weeks. Although, again, was always amassing. Like we were talking about it. It felt like the Scarabs' curse, if you want to call it that, of going to 3 games was back, right? You were always going to get there. Maybe you weren't going to get the win. But sometimes you need one. And again, now they've made the Valkyries' lives and that trip to 6th way harder. And we can ignore that for a little bit and just kind of relish this victory because it feels, Trelly, after the changes that have happened, again, just this phase, let alone this year, it's insane to see this team come out on top here.
I mean, this phase, this year, this weekend, like at this point, it's always something new, and I think a big
2 new players, by the way.
That's what I'm saying. Like a big sigh of relief for sure from the Solar Scarabs, and we're happy to see them win. Right? They're finally on the right track, and I'm glad to see that the confidence that Sam was tweeting about. Proven here on the field.
If he's look, Sam, and rightly so, right? Playoffs not necessarily anything the Scarabs need to be thinking about. He was talking about Worlds in that tweet, but if you're able to come in and look like this just in the inception of your team, we'll see what they're going to be able to do by the time we hit there. Of course, there's still a long weekend ahead of us. The Scarabs right now, all that matters is that that's a victory screen, and that's enough for myself and Trelly. We can go back to the desk, and they can break this one down.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gore and Trelly. Game number 3 does go to the Solar Scarabs, and that's got to feel like a massive win. You could see the relief on Hurrywin's face on the player cam at the end.
He's literally
They're
getting
happy
sturdy
about this
right
win.
now.
Yeah, he is squared up. He is ready, and a well-deserved win for these guys. I mean, again, this is a team that has 2 new players on their roster today. This is the first competitive game that these guys have played with each other. Netroid moving over to the hunter role. Snoopy moving from what was initially going to be a coaching role, now stepping in the mid lane in place of Veronica on this one. But Solar Scarabs find themselves a big win against the Valkyries here in Game 3, Miff.
Yeah, I mean, an impressive performance, to be sure, from the Solar Scarabs. And this is what I was talking about in the waiting room, where I thought that this was a composition, a team composition, a roster, rather, that has got a whole lot of potential. Snoopy performed out of mid on every single one of his picks, looked very good in this set. Hurrywin able to make some adaptations, playing around a new duo lane. Obviously never an easy thing to do, but makes it look good. Netroid comes in and just plug and play, looks very strong, was allowed to free cast in a couple of these games, and it really looked to me like he was trying to make a statement. Hey, Camelot Kings, you made a mistake. I'm very, very good at Smite. And going off of this set alone, Netroid is looking very, very good. The Solar Scarabs, I think, have got a lot of time to grow before we get to Worlds as well. Even though they look good today, I think they're only going to continue to look better and better every single time we get to see them.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, the Solar Scarabs, their chance to the playoffs, it's gone at this point. All they can do is just continue to kind of play spoiler, treat this like a scrim week more than anything else, try and get some practice out there.
They have spoiled.
Oh, they definitely spoiled a little bit. It may not be over yet, but we'll talk a little bit more on that after our post-game interview standing by with Hurrywin and Gormizer.
That's right. Excited after the end of those games we could see in the player cams. You're able to come through. And Hurry, I just got to ask, like, the changes that have happened, admittedly, some of them before you were even pulled into the Scarabs, but now, even after you've been there, it had to feel a little shaky at the beginning of the week. What's it like to get a win after that?
I think from a lot of other people's POV, we're kind of just like a scrap team. But I will say from our POV as the players, especially with this new version of the team, it hasn't felt like that at all. Everyone's just happy to be there. Yeah. Everyone's really constructive with what they have to say. We can make mistakes, and it's not the end of the world. This team is probably, in the time that I played Scarabs, the team grew probably the most just in this week alone with the 2 new players that we have. So I'm really excited to continue playing with those guys. I think that, you know, obviously we beat the Valks, they're not necessarily the #1 seed team, but I think everyone's really confident in our ability to continue performing.
And I do want to ask about that because that was, you know, we mentioned Sam's tweet and talking about kind of like Worlds. He mentioned it just now on the desk. Like, playoffs is not in the conversation right now. It is looking instead towards January after this week, seeing what you can do. And Mifflin had a lot of confidence in you guys. And I think it sounds like you guys have a lot of confidence. Do you think that, like, this is a team that, given a month and a half, is going to be making a Worlds run?
Yeah, I mean, at least compared to before as well, it feels like everyone really genuinely believes we can make a run. Yeah. There's no, like, probably not in the back of people's minds. Everyone actually does think we can make a run and be competitive with the top teams. We're doing well in practice. Obviously, we got a set win here today with our new roster too, so we're obviously confident with that as well. But no, yeah, I mean, we're just, we think we can make a run. We think we're a team with enough talent to make that possible, so.
And I do have to ask about this set, right? It's fun to talk about the team and everything that's been going on, but just when it comes down to this one, game #1, Valk seemed to get off to a pretty early lead and kind of control that one. What is it for you guys that changed from that performance to game #2 and then, of course, game 3?
I got off Ymir.
Is it that simple?
I don't know if it's that simple, but I do think the character is probably a little overvalued. It looked like Gamma switched off it pretty quick too as well. Maybe we're just, both of us aren't the best Ymir players. Maybe both teams did a really good job of punishing it. But early pressure on top of being an immobile character like that early game was just, it felt like we never really even got a chance to play. So we adjusted properly, and I think we showed that as long as I'm not feeding on the Ymir, that we have a good chance. So.
Well, and hey, as it turns out, I'd say the chance was pretty good, right? We got Scarabs victories up on the screen. It was a fun set to watch, man. Congratulations on the win. I'm not sure anybody really expected it coming into this week, although it sounds like you guys were definitely thinking you had it in the capabilities. So congrats on the win. Thanks for your time. We'll go back to the desk to continue breaking down the set.
Gotta love the fun and honesty of Hurry winning that one. I'm off the Ymir. Maybe that may not be all of it, but at least maybe a piece of the puzzle for the Solar Scarabs. Still having a little bit of fun, at least with Hurry win, you know, being a little bit honest with this show, and, you know, yeah, we're a team that's not really expected to win much, especially when you make roster changes all the time. You know, this team hasn't really had a chance to grow as a full team just yet, and because this team doesn't have the chance of playoffs, they've only got 1 set left. They're going to be, at most, even if they win that set, be at 3 wins, which would still be 1 under where the Bolts currently are. So for now, treating this as a week to kind of grow for themselves, get a little bit of competitive experience before their month-long break.
Yeah, and to speak on that Ymir comment just a little bit, I think that's a parting gift from Yarkor, because I was sitting in the player booth when Yarkor was playing with Hurrywin, and Hurry goes, man, I really want to play Ymir. I think he's really good. It'd be a great takeaway from whoever we were playing at the time. And Yarkor looks dead into Hurrywin's eyes. He says, you can't play Ymir. You have to play smart to play Ymir, and you are not smart. And my man didn't play Ymir. That is a direct quote. I am not paraphrasing. I'm not rephrasing. That is exactly what happened. And then Hurry looks at me and goes, yeah, I mean, I guess not. And clearly lesson learned, right?
Yeah. Game 2 and 3 got off the Ymir, got onto a pick, honestly, at the very beginning of the season. We saw Hurry first transition to support. This Atlas was something he was playing all the way back on, what was it, the Duck Squad, I think was the qualifying team that they had when he was playing with Ducky and I believe Snoopy on that roster as well. So still getting to play with some of his old roster tenure from early back on. And just looking great on this transition to support. You know, we always talk about, you know, when players make role swaps. Yark has made a move from solo lane to support to Hunter
tour.
just in this one. And now we have Hurrywin, who went from mid last season at the SPL, you know, competitive level mid, you know, top level mid laner, now to playing pretty well in the support role.
Yeah, had some time to spool up in the SCC, has since then made the transition back to SPL, but maintained that support role, and I think looks very good on it when he's not on the Ymir. And he wasn't. So in this one, very, very good. Great initiations, great target selection, ate a lot of those cooldowns. Even in the very last team fight, I had thought, okay, maybe Hurry throw through a little bit here. You know, he's dropped down to 10%, nothing's really happening. I was like, wait, hold on. That's 3 ultimates on Hurry. Even if he dies, and he did. Does it really matter all that much? And the answer was no, because Snoopy's hitting 2 or 3 man golden apples, or Netroid is just free casting and going undying while simultaneously affecting 9 kills on map. Scary D seems to be having a very good performance as of late, especially on this Hades, a pick that he was really struggling to adapt to, has since then really integrated it into his own playstyle. And even Sanford Soccer, I think, deserves a little bit of shouts here. Maybe not the highest damage output from your jungler, but was able to maintain parity in experience with Kirmi, who had started off this game 2-0. Kirmi getting active on the map, if not against PvE. Sanford Soccer just PvE, was able not only to maintain parity, but a slight lead. So by the time we transition into jungle team fights or Gold Fury team fights, Sanford Soccer got to do a little bit more than what we had seen from Kirmi.
Solar Scarabs coming up big for themselves, finding the set win over the Valhalla Valkyries, a major win for them, but also potential major spoilers as the continued week goes on. Remember, the Valkyries came into this week 2 sets down against the Olympus Bolts. If they got a win here, that only made it 1, and well, the Olympus Bolts will be playing a little bit later today themselves. So if the Olympus Bolts win that set, it could very well be the end of the Valkyries' run towards playoffs. We will take a look at the schedule and the standings, though, to see how the rest of the week plans out for these 2 teams. Camelot Kings and Oni Warriors will be our next set up after the Scarabs found their 2-1 over the Valks. Then the Bolts and the Titans, another set to be watching at the end of the day. And to kind of continue to expand on that one, if the Bolts do win against the Tartarus Titans, that's it for the Valkyries. Their playoff chances are done. So now the Valkyries are preying on the downfall of the Olympus Bolts.
Yeah, Valkyries need the Bolts to lose here and up against the Dragons.
Yeah.
The Valkyries would then have to beat the Dragons and the Bolts to close out the phase. Not impossible, certainly not impossible, but difficult, I think, and certainly a stressful situation to have your seeding and your ability to drop into that top 6 or pull yourself out of the bottom 2 completely reliant on another team. So, Valkyries and their fans, I don't know, put your hands together and put as much bad juju onto the Olympus Bolts as you possibly can. Bolts fans, I don't know, just vibe a little bit, because their path is way easier.
Yeah. Bolts fans, all you need is 1 set win out of the 3 that they have to play this weekend to guarantee their playoff spot. Doesn't matter if it's today, up against the Dragons on Saturday, or against the Valkyries later in the week. Valkyries, better be praying for some big wins for your team, because the next 2 have to be wins for you guys, and also has to be losses for the Olympus Bolts all the way throughout there. So a much more difficult road for the Valkyries to be able to make it through. For the Solar Scarabs, looking good with their new roster, at least on day number 1. We kind of got to see a little bit of a glimpse, at least for this team is concerned. They still got 1 more set to play at the very end of the week there. Oni Warriors will be their final matchup, so should just be at least be some more good kind of scrimmage for that team as the week continues on.
I think so, and we'll get a good heat check on how the Oni Warriors are feeling going into this set, or going after this today, really. And if the Oni Warriors are looking good and the Scarabs win there as well, I think that is going to be a major, major indicator for how they're going to look as we start to get closer and closer to Worlds.
Well, set number 1 is all wrapped up. We still got 2 more to go, so make sure you stick around, because the Camelot Kings and the Oni Warriors will be facing off right after this break.